Welcome back, everybody, to another YouTube video. Debating God's existence. Debating God's existence, or positive atheism is false, and then brackets, debating God's existence. So I'm going to start my live on TikTok. My phone is right next to my camera, the camera that's recording this right now. So it's going to pick up all the conversations that come up. But I will have the ability to pause the YouTube video and replay so that you don't have any moment in the video when there is radio silence. Okay? So you'll be all right. You can, flow along with me as the argument for my argument for God's existence comes out, and it is challenged by the interlocutors or objectors or rejectors of the argument or rejectors of God. So I'm going to lay out the argument very quickly. I have three arguments, but I'm going to pick. Which one I want to use. I'm going to use the intelligibility argument first. All right, the intelligibility argument goes like this: if intelligibility exists, premise one. If intelligibility exists, then intelligibility requires an ultimate sufficient ground. Premise two: intelligibility exists. Premise three: only Yahweh, the self-existent triune God, possesses the necessary attribute set to serve as the ultimate sufficient ground of intelligibility. Conclusion: therefore, Yahweh exists. So I'm going to be defending each of the premises so that these are not merely assertions. They are actually justified by reasons. They have justification. Whether the justification is rejected or accepted, they are nonetheless justified. So the first premise: if intelligibility exists, then intelligibility requires an ultimate sufficient ground. We first have to define what is intelligibility. Intelligibility refers to the existence of logic, rationality, truth, knowledge, meaning, identity, causality, morality, inference, universals, particulars, possibility, impossibility, and the ability to know and reason about reality. The premises argue that these realities cannot simply be arbitrary, brute, unexplained, or self-grounding. Support. This is supported by the PSR, Principle of Sufficient Reason. The Principle of Sufficient Reason states that reality requires sufficient explanation. If intelligibility exists, then there must be a sufficient explanation for why logic exists, why reason works, why identity persists, why causality operates, why truth is knowable. Thus, intelligibility requires an ultimate sufficient ground. And as usual, everybody on YouTube, as usual, before I even finish defending my premises, I have a request from someone. I have a request. Hugo, you are confusing proof with persuasion. If I present an argument for God's existence and you are not convinced, that does not mean I did not prove God's existence. It just means you did not, get persuaded. It has nothing to do with the truth of my argument. Because if I were to ask you to tell me which of my premises are false and why they are false, you couldn't do it. You couldn't do it. Anyways, let me bring up the first request to see what's going to happen here. Oh, there is no request. Whoever was requesting withdrew their whoever requested withdrew their thing. So the first premise is supported by the PSR, a self-evident principle. Things have a reason for why they are there. Simple. All right. The other one, premise two of my argument, is intelligibility exists. This premise is grounded in direct experience. Direct experience. Wait, this guy Hugo. I'm gonna bring you up, bro. I'm gonna bring you up. I'm gonna bring you up. Have you heard my argument, Hugo? Let me see if he's going to reject the request to come up. Because if he rejects the request to come up, then I'm going to mute him. Oh, you're on a train. Okay. If you're on a train and you can't actually interact, then shut up in the comments. Shut up. You're wasting your time. You haven't even heard my argument, and you're throwing out claims about, oh, that's not true, that's not evidence, that's false, blah, blah, blah. That is why you unbelievers are so insufferable, man. How am I supposed to answer anything when you haven't even heard my argument? You haven't even heard the entire argument, and you're telling me what's false from what's true. Are you omniscient or something? Okay, so when you say there is no reason for us to be here, how do you know that? How do you know? How do you know that there is no reason for us being here? And by the way, you're responding to okay, so because there isn't, so your answer is a circular answer. Circular reasoning is your reason. Okay. So you just showed me that your reason for rejecting the PSR is an irrational reason. Thank you very much. Anyways, so what I was saying was that my first premise is based on the PSR, that things exist for reasons. If someone says that the PSR is not true, then all I have to do is ask them, what is your reason for saying the PSR is not true? And when they give me the reason, then what happens in that conversation is they show that they are contradicting themselves. To reject the PSR is to literally be illogical and irrational. Literally. All right, so there was another comment. Can we please hear your argument? Of course. Let me give the argument again, and then defend the premises. Guys, if you know anything about arguments, you have to give the person who is giving the argument a chance to present the argument and then give their justification for each of the premises in the argument. And then you can start telling the person why it's false, why it's wrong, why it's invalid, why it's unsound, etc. You don't start telling someone they're wrong before the argument is already given. It's very unfair, and it just shows the kind of people you are when you do that. It just shows that you're illogical. Anyways, here's the argument in a simplified form, and then I'm going to give the justification for each of the premises, which would necessitate the conclusion. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to finish the entire argument before I even interact with anybody else in the comments, and then whoever wants to come up and challenge my argument by giving your negation or counter, then I look forward to it. So, premise one, if intelligibility exists, then intelligibility requires an ultimate sufficient ground. Premise two, intelligibility does exist. Premise three, only Yahweh, the self-existent triune God, possesses the necessary attribute set to serve as the ultimate sufficient ground of intelligibility. Premise that's the third premise. Now the conclusion. Therefore, Yahweh exists. Now I'm going to defend premise one. If intelligibility exists, then intelligibility requires an ultimate sufficient ground. What do I mean by intelligibility? Intelligibility refers to the existence of logic, rationality, truth, knowledge, meaning, identity, causality, morality, inference, universals, particulars, possibility, impossibility, and the ability to know and reason about reality. The premise argues that these realities cannot simply be arbitrary, brute, unexplained, or self-grounding, because they're contingent realities. Anyways, this is supported by the self-evident truth called the PSR. Everything that exists has a reason for its existence. That's a self-evident truth about reality. Things don't happen for no reason. Just to put it simply. Things don't happen for no reason. Now, it is true that there are people out there who see things happen and they don't know the reason why it happens. But that does not entail that there is no reason. Because to argue that there is no reason for something happening in virtue of you not knowing what the reason is, you are appealing to the argument from ignorance fallacy, which is a violation in reasoning. It's an informal fallacy that shows that your argument or your reason for saying that the PSR does not hold is an irrational reason and can be logically rejected or rationally rejected. Okay. This guy said, no, so no evidence will be given. First premise is self-evident, no evidence. If you're talking about empirical evidence, we haven't gotten there yet. Okay, so the first premise, self-evident truth, PSR. If you reject it, then it just shows that you're delusional and stupid. Has nothing to do with Christianity. You reject the PSR, you're just delusional and stupid. That's all it is. Premise two. This premise is grounded in direct experience. Direct experience. Every rational being presupposes logic, meaning, causality, identity, inference, communication. Even denying intelligibility requires using intelligibility. Now, someone said I'm throwing an ad hom by saying that someone who denies the PSR is delusional. Notice, I'm not saying someone who denies God is delusional. I'm saying someone who denies the PSR is delusional because the PSR is grounded in reality itself. And to be delusional is to not be in touch with reality. So it is not an insult, it's a fact. If someone says that there is no sun in the sky while squinting at the sun, that's a delusional person. It's just a fact. It's just a fact, guys. Just a fact. All right. So to argue that intelligibility does not exist already presupposes logic, language, meaning, reasoning. Therefore, intelligibility is undeniable. You have to use intelligibility to deny intelligibility, which commits the fallacy of retorsion, which is another irrational reason to deny the, premise two. All right, premise three. And this is where, the rubber meets the road. Only Yahweh possesses the man. I gotta keep my voice down. This is very, very difficult to talk for hours with a high pitch. I'm sure people can hear me if I talk lower. Okay, premise three. Only Yahweh possesses the necessary attribute set required to serve as the ultimate sufficient ground of intelligibility. This is the most distinctive premise. I am not merely asserting that Yahweh is the only sufficient ground. Instead, I apply it to, and I prove it by, comparative transcendental analysis, attribute mapping, reductio ad absurdum, elimination, and rocks. Hold on, people on YouTube. I got to respond to a comment. Okay, so Truth Teller is saying, again, no evidence will be given. Okay. This is a common atheist talking point. You have no evidence, therefore God doesn't exist. Or God doesn't exist because there's no evidence. When they make arguments like that, if you are educated in logic or philosophy, you immediately see where the person you're talking to is either logically illiterate or they are educated logically, but they don't care about the rules of reasoning or whatsoever. saying that there is no evidence for God does not entail that God doesn't exist. It's an argument from incredulity and an argument from ignorance fallacy. But they don't care, guys. They don't care. They don't care. The opposite would be a Christian telling you, you cannot prove that God does not exist, therefore God exists. That does not follow logically. But they don't realize that they're using the same argument in the opposite direction. They don't realize. This just shows you guys how some people, they're just illiterate when it comes on to logic. And I'm not saying that I know everything about logic. I've been studying logic for a year now. So I think I know enough to interact in philosophical discussions about logic, but I don't know everything. And based upon what I do know, I know that that is an argument from ignorance fallacy and an appeal to incredulity fallacy. But I have a request. Let's see what this guy has to say. Or lady, I don't know. There's no display photo. This guy says it's my ego talking, not logic. By the way, guys, logic does not speak, okay? This guy is committing the fallacy of reification by applying personal qualities to an abstraction. When you're doing conversations like this where you're debating, you got to always keep your debate hat on and point out fallacies when you see them. It's your ego talking, not logic. Logic doesn't talk, buddy. And ego doesn't talk either. Oh my goodness. Oh boy. Somebody requested out, but they withdrew their request, it seems. This is getting fun now. It started to get fun today. It started to get fun. Okay, we have another request. Let's see. Destroyer of atheist. What? You're an atheist destroyer?
I mean, it depends. What are you?
I'm a man created in the image of God. Are you an atheist destroyer?
Yeah.
That's the name of your DP.
Well, the name is just Destroyer.
Okay, destroyer. What would you like to say?
What's your perspective on your paradigm? Just so I can understand.
Well, I'm just talking about God's existence today, which is consistent with my paradigm, the Christian worldview. So, are you looking to hear the argument or defend a position which is a negation of my argument, or are you saying that God does not exist, or you're unconvinced of God's existence? What is your position?
Like, I don't believe that God intervenes and passes a book to the people.
So you are a deist.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you aware that deism is logically contradictory, which makes it false?
Deism?
Yeah.
Deism?
D with a D. Deism.
Yeah.
It's logically contradictory and therefore false. Are you aware of that?
How so?
Because a deistic God, by definition, cannot and has not revealed himself. So to make any propositions about the deistic God would produce a P and not P.
So you need God to reveal himself in order for God to exist, correct?
No, you need God to reveal himself in order for you to make any intelligible statements about God. Because otherwise, you have no epistemic grounding for any statement you make about a deistic God. So to make a statement about a deistic God would produce a P and not P, which is a contradiction that falsifies the position of a deistic God.
I don't see the contradiction.
Okay, I'll ask you simply. Have you ever heard of have you ever heard of Mr. Curtin's Park?
Nope.
Could you have made any statements about Mr. Curtin's Park unless I told you about it?
No.
There it is. So logically follows if Yahweh, sorry, I'm not even going to use Yahweh, if a deistic God has not revealed himself to any degree, because deism simply states that God does not interact or intervene in the universe whatsoever, which would necessitate that the very statement about a deistic God that he does not intervene in the created order at all would also include him not revealing himself, which would then be a P and not P. To speak of that God would be to say that that God has revealed himself when he has not, so it's a contradiction. I don't have that problem. I believe in Yahweh. Yahweh has revealed himself. He has done so through creation and through his word. So every statement I make has an epistemic justificatory path as to where my statement is grounded. If I say God is spirit, how do you know that? Well, we have his revelation, the Bible, and creation itself. It's very, very distinct from a deistic God. So I think you should abandon deism because it's a contradiction, buddy.
It might be a contradiction on the words you say, but when you logically look at it, it's not really a contradiction because we humans are expecting some type of person to be some type of God, right? I don't see God as a person at all. I believe God is and is not. It's like a binary universe, pretty much.
You just said that you think God just is and is not. That's a contradiction, buddy.
Do you know what a binary universe is?
A binary universe would be a universe that has two aspects to it.
Yeah.
You would have to identify what the binary is. And a binary would be an or, something, a both and situation. If you're both and is, God is and God is not, then you have a contradiction. That's a P and not P.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's how I look at the universe, because the universe is binary. No matter how much we try to debate it.
I agree that the universe is a binary. I agree that the universe, the universe on a whole, with reference to reality is a binary and a duality in that there is a spiritual and there is a physical. There is a spiritual and a physical, and everything that exists will fall into that category, physical and spiritual. But notice they don't contradict each other. I'm not saying that it is the case that the universe is physical and it is not physical, because that would be a contradiction. You're saying that God is and God is not at the same time, in the same way, in the same category, which would literally entail a contradiction, man. You can't defend that claim to anyone. And an atheist, if they heard that, they would point out the contradiction immediately and say, bro, you are literally believing and holding to a contradiction, which falsifies your position.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
I wouldn't want that to happen to you.
Right? It's not wrong, because we humans are expecting God to be like judging us, right, from the sky, in order for us to act or behave good, right? I just think I don't think God as the God in the Bible, but the God in the sense where God is itself experiencing itself through every through its existence, through its creation.
And the God you're talking about is also is and not at the same time. He is and he is not at the same time. All right, buddy. Yo, thank you for coming up. Thank you for your interaction, man.
Need to be a person, though, right? Because a person, if you hold God to be a person who has emotions, you would just have an emotional God, right?
I'm gonna move on to another guest. I'm not the kind of guy to kick people without telling them. So I'm just gonna let you know that I'm gonna move on now. Okay? It was nice talking to you, bro. And come back another time. I want to be polite. I'm commanded to by my Lord. I hope that he sees what I was talking about. You can't say that God is and God is not, in the same way, the same sense, same category, and then accept that it is a contradiction, and then not deny it. But you're just a guy who doesn't care about truth, man. It's okay. We have people like that in the world. All right, let me see what this guy has to say. And for those of you on YouTube, sorry that I was not able to get through the entire argument as to his justification. People started coming up. What's up, bro?
What's up, brother, man? How you doing, man? It's 4:21 here on Guam, on my side of the equator. I'm celebrating my second Sabbath, going into Saturday. And I was just listening to you. Very, very intelligent, brother. Where's your doctrine? Well, I'm assuming because you got Yahweh, you're a follower of Christ?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay, just double checking. May I ask, how long have you been debating the Bible versus other deities or other doctrines, like say Hindi or Muslim or atheist or such like that? The gentleman was an atheist killer, right? And he kept talking about God, and you've identified one of the gods of the Bible, but he couldn't even identify. That's what I get people on. Are you familiar with the doctrine of Christ, Brother Adrian? My name is Paul. That's a Chamorro word. It's dikikiti, which is basically small spirit in Chamorro. Chi is spirit. Okay. My name is Paul. I used to come in. My names were Grim Reaper for Jesus. I am Legion for Jesus. Taking you out. You're going to smoke a turd in the lake of fire for Jesus and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there's the doctrine of Christ, which is 2 John 1:9-11. 2 Timothy 3:6. We use the Bible to prove other doctrines wrong. And so you speak to, it says here in this word. So for an example, there is a Trinity, right, in the Bible, but there is a God above all of the Trinity. And that's in Deuteronomy 10:17, that the God of gods, he's a terrible God. He's a fearful God, and he's the Lord of lords. And his son is Jesus Christ, right? So we have Revelation 19:15, which is the word of God returned. We have Revelation 12:1, which is the revelation of the Holy Spirit. And then we got Revelation 14:7, which is the Most High God, that Jesus Christ actually becomes the Most High God. So it goes from like a Trinity to a deity of the Father and the Mother. Jesus becomes the Father in Revelation 3:20. Anybody who overcomes will sit in Jesus' seat, because we're all going to be kings, priests, and kings and priests for the Most High God in Jesus Christ's name. So it's kind of the same guy, but it hasn't happened yet, so I don't like to speak to it. And so when you use the doctrine of Christ, like when people say, well, how do you know your God exists? I said, well, the God that I serve, he prophesies his son. That's in. So for your consideration, John 17:9, Jesus only prays for those that the Father gave to him. He does not pray for the world. In John 17:7, and it says, oh, my people, this is the guys that I have, just fill them up, make sure they don't get their butt kicked by the adversary's team. And then it says in John 17:17, sanctify them in thy truth, thy word is truth. In Matthew 1:1, Jesus Christ is Solomon in that generation, the son of David. That's why he was really smart prior to the baptism, when he was beating up. When he was speaking to the elders for 3 days at 12 years old. Mm-hmm. So he already had Isaac, and Isaac had the love of Sarah. If you read the story of Isaac, Rebecca comes, she veils up, he's in the field, they go into the tent, and they stay there, and Rebecca actually comforts Isaac after Sarah passes away. And then in Proverbs 30:4, it says, who ascends and descends? What's the name of the guy that holds the wind in the fist? What's his son's name? If you can tell. Or what's his son's name if you can tell? It says every word of God is pure in verse 5. Don't add to the word or you'll be called a liar. That's why I do the Grim Reaper for Jesus stuff. Mm-hmm. And then you actually jump to the Apocrypha. And in 2 Ezra 7:26, it says that the bride shall be revealed. She shall make an inquiry on those who mess with her righteous, like Adrian King. And then it says, If you are aware of the foresaid evils, you will see the great wonders, for my son Jesus shall be revealed with those. It's Jesus in the Greek. Then after these years, my son Christ died, that all men have life. So that goes to the part where Herod brings the elders and said, hey man, who are those three wise men? How come they didn't come back? Oh, they're talking about the prophet. What prophet? And most people will say Isaiah 9, right? Emmanuel. But in the Apocrypha, it does say Jesus, and then it says, after these years, my son Christ died, that all men have life. The churches took that out in the 1800s. They took out the Apocrypha. When you line up the Apocrypha with the KJV, the Apocrypha actually lines up right after the Revelation, because 1st and 2nd Esdras actually tell you what's happening in the Revelation, how the followers of Christ, the churches of Christ that don't teach the commandments, that's Revelation 12:17 and 14:12. So the churches didn't teach that, but the congregations, using the teaching of the doctrines of, hey man, at least do the second commandment. You know what I mean? So they don't teach to love the Lord your God with all their heart, mind, and soul by keeping the commandments. But that's where we get Romans 2:11-15. That Paul said, hey man, God's not a respecter of persons. That goes back to Deuteronomy 10:17, that he's not a respecter of persons. And then it also goes to Deuteronomy 16, a judge in the 12 tribes constitution. He's just one man. There's no jury of peers. He does not take a bribe, so you can't pull up one of those Biden son type, things. So, and then he hears both sides. So even the poor, the stranger, the orphan, the widow can come and stand before a judge and say, hey man, this stuff was done to me. Here's my witnesses. And if the other guy said, what's up, Adrian, man? Come on, man. Remember that party we went to? That doesn't happen. And then the matter is weighed, and then that's the winner. Also in Deuteronomy 16, you don't charge usury. So you're not supposed to put a lien on somebody's house or their car if they owe you money. That if you do have to do a bond servant, in Deuteronomy 16, very clear. Yeah, that bond servant has to return to the house that it slept in, so the master cannot sleep with. And then for the city communities, you're not supposed to... the edges of your orchards and stuff like that, you're supposed to leave the edges open for the stranger, for the homeless. They're supposed to put fruit trees in the city. Oh yeah, but all the bugs. I know, but all those homeless people that we have to spend millions and millions on, they'll never be hungry. They can just eat an apple off a tree or something like that. So these are the things that Western civilization has covered up, and they make us chase the dollar. But I had to stop my business 4 years ago. I've been in the Bible for 22 years. I found out about geocentrism 10 years ago, and within 2 years, I was moved to follow the Torah. And then that's when all the conspiracies and things that I've been investigating for 30, 40 years. I love the fact that you're very considerate of what I have to say without cutting me off. I will leave you because although we may not agree on the doctrines of Christ, we agree on Christ. You know what I mean? And the God that we serve, Adrian, he sees through all of these. It took me 10 years. It took me 8 years to finally go, you know what, man, outside of Adrian not keeping the Sabbath, and I didn't even ask him if he does, what judgment do I have to you? You are a young man that, I'm 59, bro, so everybody's young to me. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I love your love for Jesus. I love that you stand on your principles. I have no judgment for you, brother.
Thank you, bro.
Whatsoever. I just pray that the Most High God in Jesus Christ's name continue to bless your ministry, that he continue to bring forward just strong, young men that they are convicted in their spirit, and that's the Holy Spirit convicting you, my brother Adrian. I cannot come against the Holy Spirit. That would be blasphemy on my part. There's no forgiveness for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
I testify that as a man who keeps the Torah in Jesus Christ's name, I see no sin in what you are doing in the name of Jesus, man. Keep doing, dude. I'm getting chicken skin, bro.
Thank you for coming, bro. Thank you so much.
It's 4:30 in the morning, brother. I just woke up. It is Saturday morning for me, and I am starting my Sabbath again. I'm going into my morning Sabbath of Saturday, and I am like, man, Lord, I'm not in who's this guy? Who's this guy? He ain't got the doctor, guys. Holy cow, dude! This guy is smooth and steady. Not
there you go.
Smooth, oily words.
There you go. So
no
stay. I want you to stay and listen for all the interactions, okay? And keep me in your prayers, my brother. God bless you so much. Thanks for coming.
Jump out so I don't go. Hey.
Thank you for coming, bro. Thank you for coming. Thanks for the encouragement. Who's that? The Protector. How's it going, bro?
Hey, I believe in Yahweh, right? But I have questions about Yahweh.
Go ahead.
Why is in Exodus 6:3 does Yahweh admit that he told all the forefathers of Israel, what became Israel, that his name was Yahweh, but he told them that his name was El and not Yahweh.
Well, actually,
so every time they worshiped what they thought was God, they always said El.
Well, when you and I want you to look this up so that it can clear it up for you. There is actually an alternative and valid translation of that in Exodus, where it actually says, "I am the God of your forefathers, etc., etc. Have I not revealed myself to them?" Instead of saying, "But by my name Yahweh, I have not revealed to them." Right. So the statement, "But by my name Yahweh, I have not revealed to them," it's actually in the form of a question in the Hebrew, which would go like this: "Have I not revealed myself to them?" And then when you look at the Old Testament before the time of Moses, Yahweh actually appeared to the patriarchs as Yahweh and not simply El. I can actually show you the Bible verses.
When did he call himself Yahweh to the patriarchs?
I'll show you.
Because I know he claimed to be El Shaddai, which is El the Mountain, which was the title given to Canaanite god El specifically, and no other god, because El was the father of Yahweh in the Canaanite pantheon.
Well, actually, we're gonna get to that too. We're gonna take them one by one because there's a lot of falsehood going around because some liberal scholars said that Yahweh was a son of El. But the first thing I'm going to show you is that Yahweh actually revealed himself to the patriarchs as Yahweh and as El, as in God Almighty. Hold on a sec. Hey, ChatGPT, I want you to pull up for me where Yahweh reveals himself as Yahweh to the patriarchs and where he calls himself Yahweh Most High or God Most High or the Most High. Because I put together a book on this and I uploaded the book to ChatGPT so that I can actually be able to, in seconds, pull these things up. So we have when Yahweh reveals himself as Yahweh and as El or God Almighty in Genesis chapter 14, verse 18. Says, "Blessed be Abraham by God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth." Then Abraham immediately responded and says, "I have lifted up my hand to Yahweh, God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth." So we literally have Abraham experiencing God and calling him Yahweh and also calling him the Most High. Now, with reference to
what was that? Genesis what?
Genesis 14, verse 18 through 22. You're not going to see the word Yahweh in the translation you're using. You're probably going to see the capital L-O-R-D, but every time you see the capital L-O-R-D, the Hebrew word is the tetragrammaton, which is Yahweh itself.
And that's not correct, actually. Lord in the old Hebrew was a ball.
Wait, let me pull it up.
That was the word for Lord. Was Baal. That's the common word in Hebrew and Aramaic.
Actually, in the Hebrew, the word for Lord is Adonai, but let's take this one at a time. So I'm going to pull up Genesis 14, verse 18, and then we're going to get to the argument about Yahweh being a father of El. So in Genesis chapter 14, verse 22, it says, "Then Abraham said to the king of Sodom, I have raised my hand to Yahweh, God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth." So this is just one example of God being known by the patriarchs before Moses as Yahweh. And now for the argument given about God being a son of El.
That doesn't really solve the argument because it says the word Lord. It never says Yahweh at that point.
It actually does in the Hebrew.
But ancient Hebrew, they would never. Yeah, the word Lord in ancient Hebrew was the word Baal. That was always what they called Lord. That was the word they used for Lord.
I have access to the actual Hebrew on my iPad. And the actual Hebrew is Yehovah, which is Yahweh translated into English. So you're using the wrong translation, I think. I can actually show it to you. Literally, show it to... Oh, damn. I can't show it to you. Sorry, I can't.
But at the same time, I'll tell you, for example, why did Yahweh literally tell Moses this?
In Exodus 3:6, right? All right. In Exodus 3, verse 2 through 3, in the Hebrew, there is a... Exodus chapter 6, verse 2 through 3. There is an alternative translation where it is in the form of a question. Lay out the grammar for me so that I can show it.
It's not a question. It's an actual statement from Yahweh. He said, "For they did not know that they didn't." I can't read it at the same time is the problem. I pulled it up, but I can't read it while I'm looking at it. You can't hear me. I don't think. Because I pulled it up, but I can't read it. It's on a different app. Hold on. Let me look
okay.
at my
So here it is. So you can look this up. Don't believe me. Hebrew Semitic scholars all agree that the construction of the Hebrew grammar in Exodus chapter 6 can be translated, and by my name Yahweh, was I not known to them? Instead of saying, and by my name Yahweh, I was not known to them. In the construction, it can be translated into a question, which means that to form this into a question, being consistent with what came before it, i.e. Genesis chapter 14, where Abraham literally identifies God as Yahweh. Yahweh did reveal himself to the patriarchs as Yahweh. He did.
So when Abraham comes and meets Melchizedek, is that how you say his name?
Melchizedek.
Yeah. I don't know how. I have a hard time with his name. It's kind of weird. And he is informed that this guy is not only a king, but also a priest of El, the Canaanite deity. Not Yahweh, but he still gives him honor and gives him pays ties to Melchizedek as after he's.
That's because you're taking the liberal scholars' interpretation of the Ugaritic texts that they identified in the ancient Near East. And in the Ugaritic text, they see where the god El has 70 sons, and they see a parallel in Deuteronomy 32, verse 8, right, where Yahweh seems to receive an inheritance. But they all say that this is their interpretation and they could be wrong. Don't take them as absolutely true. And here's the refutation of their interpretation of that. When you look at Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 19 to 20, you actually see where the same event that is mentioned in Deuteronomy 32 is mentioned in chapter 4. But Yahweh is the one who is identified as the one allotting to the nations gods and taking for himself the Israelite nation. And I'm going to read it for you so that you can see it for yourself. Verse 19 through 20, it says, "And lest you lift up your eyes to heaven and see the sun and the moon and the stars, all the hosts of heaven, and be drawn away to worship them and serve them, those which Yahweh your God has allotted for all the peoples under the whole heaven, but Yahweh has taken you and brought you out of the iron furnace from Egypt to be a people for his own inheritance as today." So when you read those books like from Mark Smith, from Francesca Stravakopoulou, from John Dever, all of their books where they identify Yahweh as a son of El, they also say that this is their interpretation of the ancient text. They could be wrong, and their interpretation could change. But when you actually look at the biblical text, it does not support their conclusion. So just read Deuteronomy 4, verse 19 through 20, and look up what I told you to on the other interpretation and translation of the grammar of the Hebrew in Exodus chapter 6, and you'll solve the problem.
Well, I don't think it does fully, because in Psalms 82, Yahweh goes and visits the council and starts cursing out the other gods for allowing in evil people, and starts saying that he's like throwing the biggest curses at them.
Yeah. Yahweh is going to judge the divine beings for causing the people to walk in darkness. That is the biblical narrative, bro, where Yahweh has given stewardship to all the divine beings, his sons, to guide the nations before the Bible existed, but those divine beings misled the nations into worshiping them. That's where we got all these different religions from. But Yahweh promises he's going to judge these divine beings in the end. You can also see this in Isaiah chapter 24, where the Bible says Yahweh will judge the host of heaven in heaven and the kings of the earth on the earth. So God is going to judge them, man.
Just continuing this knowledge thing. You have Anu in Samaria, right? You have what they call the Anakim, which is like a Nephilim with Anu, right? And is that in Numbers? I think that's Numbers where they're talking about the Anakim. When the scouts are sitting by, Yahweh tells them to send some scouts to Canaan and look at what's going on, and they come back and they're all scared. They're like, "These got these people there."
Yeah, the giants. They are the descendants of the Nephilim. They're the descendants.
The Bible directly called them the Anakim.
Yeah, they're descendants. They're descendants of the Nephilim from Genesis chapter 6, where divine beings slept with the daughters of men, and the offspring became giants. They wiped out most of the giants in the flood, but some of them remained. Well, some of them reappeared because the divine beings continued to sleep with the daughters of men, but they stopped eventually.
How's that even possible? I thought all the divine beings were defeated by Michael and Raphael and what was it, Gabriel? I thought they defeated the divine beings. Mount Hermon.
The reason why saying that they divided they what you're referring to is a localized battle or fight between Gabriel and the divine beings. Angels have the ability to rebel against God, and when they do, by sleeping with the daughters of men, they are sent to a place called Tartarus, where they are kept in chains until the final day of judgment. Demons, on the other hand, are the spirits of the unalived giants from the flood. That is why when Jesus appeared to them in Legion, the Legion said to Jesus, "Are you going to judge us before the time?" Because their judgment is also coming. So I would like for you to just read Michael Heiser, the supernatural realm, and you will see all of these things synthesized for you, so that the questions you have are quickly answered.
That last story sounds a lot like the Clash of the Gods from Greece, with the Titans versus the Olympus gods, where Zeus takes all the Titans and throws them in Tartarus and chains them there to be there for all time. Ravaging across the earth.
Yeah, similarity does not entail identical, and we all, as Christians, should agree that the divine beings, when they deceived the nations, they also told the followers of those nations to write narratives about them. Those narratives attempting to steal glory from Yahweh, but never doing so successfully, because those divine beings still remain contingent, are still able to be unalived, are still limited to nature, and are still able to do things that are not permitted by Yahweh, like sleeping with women, being like men instead of being more celestial, and things like that. So that is why Yahweh is superior to all those gods, because they are limited to nature, they are fallible, they make mistakes, they don't know all things, and they die. They are conquered and things like that.
Very interesting. I was talking to this Muslim guy on TikTok one day, and he's like, "Well, you follow Jesus, and he had melanatomy, so you can't. How your God had melanatomy?" I'm like, "Wait a minute. You do know how Nephilim were created, right? The angels or other deities came down and slept with the women, and how did they do that if they didn't have the melanatomy? And God created man in His image, which means He probably has that anatomy." And then on top of all this, he forgets that Yahweh / however you want to look at it, came down and actually ate with Abraham.
Right. It's called the corporeality of God. God is able to become a physical being. He's able to do so. He just doesn't do it anymore because his purpose for doing miracles were for authenticating his prophets and for calling his people. And once he has done that and the Bible has been written and recorded and closed, he no longer needs to do that. What we do today is we use the Bible to authenticate and judge if somebody is a prophet or a messenger of God or just a hypocrite.
Yeah, and I call that. He got so mad.
Yeah.
And he thought it was gonna be a quick little joke. I'm like, why are you limiting Yahweh or whatever the deity is? Why are you limiting like that when you literally know that they created offspring?
Right.
Was it his sub? Because the council of L members that rebelled against him, or council Yahweh, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah. There is a divine council doctrine in the Bible. And they wouldn't be able
to do that if they didn't have the capability.
Right. So just do the reading I recommended for you, man. And thanks for coming up, and we'll talk again, okay?
Yeah,
I'm going to see who else is in the request to come up. And guys, if I'm not bringing up more than one person, it's because I am not that, what word can I use? You know what? I'm going to use that word. I'm going to use it. I'm not that smart to talk to two people at the same time who are opposing me or my arguments. I'm not that smart. I'm a very black and slow individual. So forgive me for only talking to one person at a time, okay? Let me bring this person up. All right. Maybe this individual withdrew their request. Oh, Truth Teller says, tag Phil Bros think they are brilliant. Wow. I tell people all the time, I am not a brilliant person. I am actually the dullest tool in the box. All right. What would you like to say, bro? Or ma'am? Is it a man?
Good afternoon, sir.
Oh,
I am
good afternoon,
a
sir.
man
Good afternoon,
in the
sir.
image of our God. God bless.
Right. Amen. What's up?
So, just a question, inquiry, no debate, no argumentation, nothing like that. I remember briefly hearing you place an argument with regards to the Old Testament and slavery. I think it was one of your prompts.
Right.
I just wanted to hear that kind of in totality. I wanted to give you the floor to run that quickly, unless you're just like annoyed of talking about it. I notice obviously you're on a different topic.
Oh no, I'm not annoyed at talking about it. It's something I talk about because it's something that I see being misunderstood all over the place when people talk about it. So my take on it is basically slavery is evil. Owning another human being as property is evil. But within our worldview framework as Christians, we understand that all things have been ordained and decreed by God for his most holy and good purposes, which would include all the evils of the world. So slavery is a part of our reality because God uses evil for good. So that's what I was saying. So I'm not justifying slavery, saying slavery is good, saying that we should accept slavery or any sort. And I run that live to point out errors in that sometimes people say that the biblical slavery was based on racism. That's false because every person who was a non-Israelite, meaning they were not born into the community, they could worship Yahweh and become an Israelite, which means that it was not based on race. And this extended to even slaves as well. They became an Israelite. They had the same benefits as any native born. And this is from Exodus chapter 12, verse 48. So a slave who became an Israelite, there was an obligation for that slave to be released after 7 years and also be given compensation of livestock and produce for them to be independent. So it's just a lot of misunderstandings that people bring when they talk about slavery that I try to correct.
Okay. But ultimately, like, it relies on providence, right? Like the idea that bad things happen and are allowed by God, not that God tempts, but allowed by God so that God can restore and ultimately bring that death to life, right?
Right. So in another way, because it's
that's all I wanted to say. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for coming up, then, man. Thank you. So it's a distinction between what other Christians say. Other Christians say God allows it. I say God decrees or ordains it, and it is for a good purpose, which does not contradict God as being all good. Now, if it was the case that we say God is all good, but the world and the universe is ultimately not good, then we have a contradiction. But the world and the universe is not ultimately not good. The world and the universe, in its ultimate purpose, is for good, which is consistent with our worldview. God's decree, God's plan involving evil, wickedness, and sin does not contradict God nor the Christian worldview at all. So it's a very, very difficult task for someone to do an internal critique where you literally assume the truth of the position that you're trying to negate and then derive a P and not P. It's literally impossible for anyone to do that. You know what? I'm not even going to say it's impossible. I'm going to say that it has not happened. It has not happened. To this day, it hasn't happened. And the reason why I'm not going to say it's logically impossible is because someone can have an abstract, conceivable world where, they could probably refute or find a P and not P. So I'm not going to say it's logically impossible. I'm just going to say that it hasn't happened. All right, so let's see here. Brandon. This guy, my brother, have the same name. How you doing, Brandon? Okay, so this is the intelligibility argument I have to bring up. Okay, so Brandon is probably not, coming up. Let me open this book. All right, so I'm going to talk about something that needs to be talked about as Brandon is getting ready to come up. When we define God in Christianity, and someone says, where's the evidence for God? Where's the evidence for God? Where's the evidence for God? They don't realize that when they ask a Christian to show them evidence for God, and what they mean by that is show them empirical evidence for God in the sense that we should show them God, a physical object that is localized within the universe. They don't understand that when they ask us to do that, they're, number one, representing our position falsely because we don't believe that God is a physical entity. And number two, they're committing a category error fallacy because they're asking us to show them a physical thing that is by definition not physical. So what I'm going to do for those of you who are on YouTube watching this and for those of you who are in the comments is I'm going to be telling you that in virtue of who Yahweh is, there is a type of evidence that you would look for. And the evidence that you would look for a God like this is actually what you see, which means that there is evidence for God. It's just evidence that you guys reject. But I'm going to make sure that I lay this out for you as clearly as I can. So when somebody says, what is the evidence for God? The answer depends entirely on what kind of God is being discussed. If someone defines God as a physical creature, a material organism, or an object inside the universe, then one would look for creaturely, localized, empirical evidence. But Christianity does not define Yahweh that way. Yahweh is defined as the ultimate unifying causal natured entity who actualizes, sustains, governs, and grounds all reality, intelligibility, possibility, morality, logic, and existence itself. Therefore, the evidence for Yahweh would not be Yahweh appearing as a physical object among other physical objects. Rather, the evidence would be creation itself, reflecting his attributes. So when you ask a Christian, what is the evidence for God, and you mean empirical evidence, we simply point you to the creation. And we show you that the creation reflects Yahweh's attribute set perfectly. And you may say, well, I don't see it. Doesn't matter. That's an appeal to incredulity. You may say, well, that's not evidence. Well, okay. Are you saying that only physical evidence? And are you saying that naturalism is true? Because if naturalism is true, then only physical things exist, and that would mean God doesn't exist. I would then ask you, what is your justification for saying naturalism is true? And then you might say science. And then I'm going to say, but science presupposes the conclusion that you need to prove, which is begging the question. So your entire worldview of naturalism is based on a fallacy called begging the question, which means that you are arguing irrationally and illogically. And, your opposition is relevant because it doesn't disprove Christianity. But anyways, the evidence for Yahweh would be the existence of reality itself. Does reality exist? Yes, that's evidence for Yahweh. That's one. So contingent reality, things begin, change, depend, and could fail to exist. Contingent reality therefore requires an ultimate non-contingent ground. The Christian claim is Yahweh is that ultimate necessary ground. Number two, intelligibility. Reality is understandable, rationally ordered, logically coherent, mathematically describable, and accessible to the human mind. This is one of the strongest evidences for God. Why? Because intelligibility requires grounding. The laws of logic are immaterial, universal, invariant, and necessary. Matter does not explain logic, meaning, rationality, or truth. The Christian worldview argues intelligibility exists because reality is grounded in the rational nature of God. And then we can point out other evidences, but I'm going to just, instead of expounding on each of the evidences, I'm just going to lay out for you, if Yahweh exists, this is the evidence that you would expect. Not, if Yahweh exists, then you would expect to see him walking down the street. Not, if Yahweh exists, then I should be able to pull him up on the panel. These questions, and the unbelievers don't even realize it. These questions, these objections are just exposing how illiterate you are logically and philosophically, and also theologically, because these questions come from a place of ignorance. You would not ask, prove to me that Yahweh exists, and in your mind you mean, I should show you Yahweh walking down the street, or Yahweh talking to me as a physical object. That is to misrepresent Christianity altogether. But you guys don't care. It's all right. I don't care either, because it has no bearing on my position. All right, so evidence must correspond to the nature of the thing being investigated. Yahweh is not claimed to be a finite material object within creation. Therefore, demanding finite material object evidence for Yahweh commits a category error. Yahweh is defined as the ultimate unifying causal natured entity who actualizes, sustains, governs, and grounds all reality and intelligibility. Therefore, the evidence expected for Yahweh would be intelligibility, order, causality, morality, teleology, rationality, fine-tuning, mathematical structure, and dependent creation or contingent creation. Reality exhibits intelligibility, order, causality, morality, teleology, rationality, fine-tuning, mathematical structure, and contingent creation. Therefore, reality exhibits the very evidence expected if Yahweh exists. If reality exhibits the exact evidence expected from Yahweh's existence, then reality functions as evidence for Yahweh. Therefore, reality functions as evidence for Yahweh. Therefore, the proposition there is no evidence for God is false. So, guys, when you ask a Christian, where's the evidence for God? Where's the evidence for God? The Christian answer should be you. You're evidence for God. You speak, you think, you talk, you exist, you interact with the world, you understand the world. Reality itself is evidence for God, something that you can actually touch, see, feel, experience. That is the evidence for Yahweh. That is why I make sure I define my terms very well. Yahweh is the ultimate unifying causal natured entity who actualizes, governs, sustains, and controls all of reality, and therefore the evidence that you would look for a God like that would be reality itself. Now the question becomes, but other gods claim that they are the ultimate unifying causal natured entity that actualizes and governs all of creation. Of course there are. Let's talk about them, because I have them. I actually did the transcendental analysis. I actually did it. So, any God that you have, bring him up, and I'll show you why he's inferior to Yahweh. I'll show you. It's very easy. I examined all of the major gods of Africa, all of the major gods of the ancient Near East, all of the major gods of Asia, all of the major gods of Europe, all of the major gods of the Americas, and all the major gods of Oceania. I've examined all of them, and I did a transcendental analysis of all of them versus Yahweh, where I did a comparison of their attribute set and Yahweh's attribute set and showed how they cannot ground intelligibility that is experienced by us every single day. Oh, sure. This person wants me to name 5 major gods of Asia, but I want to bring up my book where I actually did the analysis. Hold on. Okay, Yahweh against the gods. Here's the book. Wait. I'm actually not going to only name you 5. I'm actually going to also tell you how many of them are there in Asia. Wait. Okay, here we are. Asia. Okay. No, that's ancient Near East. Hold on. Here we are. So the gods of Asia would be Indra, Shakshi, Agni, Varnuna, Surya, Vishnu, Shiva, Parvati, Durga, Kali, Brahma, Saras. Some of them are hard to pronounce, guys. Some of them are hard to pronounce. Wait, so the host defines his God fiction better than the rest. You would have to show me that it's fiction. You would have to prove your claim that it is fiction, which I don't think you can. I'm curious to know, truth teller, how do you determine how did you determine that there are God-independent contingencies in the universe? I would love to see how you prove that. And I'm going to let you know, if you appeal to science, science does not prove it because science would beg the question. You would be appealing to something that already assumes the conclusion that you are seeking to prove, which would be a begging the question fallacy. So if this is you requesting up, I hope it is. Oh, it's not. It's not even him. So he just likes to make claims in the comments. It's fine. Okay, so you're off the train now. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Actually, I fat fingered it, so sorry.
Oh, okay. It's all right. Oh, this guy said, JT said, truth teller, don't let dishonesty make you throw out the truth. Hey, Seth, I'm doing good, man. Just you know, running the arguments for God. All right, so we have another request here. Papa Drew. How's it going, Papa Drew? Can you hear me? Maybe Papa Drew accidentally came up. Now, someone said that Kali is not a god of Asia. I want you to understand something. When I say Asia, I'm talking about the continent, which would include all of these countries, right? Afghanistan, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Brunei, Cambodia, China, Cyprus, Georgia, India, Indonesia, Iran, Iraq, Israel, Japan, Jordan, and some other countries I can't pronounce, okay? So within the continent Asia, there are, the continent Asia, there are 42 major gods, 42 major gods. And why do I emphasize the word major? Because there's a specific criteria that is used in my book to identify a god for examination. It is not. It is. I use 6 criteria, and the 7th criteria is not really a criteria; it's a fact. Okay, so here are the 6 criteria that I used, and everyone should use because they're self-evident when you study the other gods of the nations, all the major ones. What stands out to you is that all of the major gods have historical continuity. All the major gods have revelation in authoritative texts and oral tradition. All of the major gods have a significant number of followers across time. All of the major gods have cultural, political, and institutional dominance. All of the major gods have theological depth and a composite revealed attribute set. And number 6, all of the major gods have cross-cultural patterns and influences. That's number 6. Number 7 is that you will not find a one-to-one with a god that someone says, I just invented in my mind. Because they will not have these qualities. They will not have or fit the criteria I just laid out. And this would include as well Yahweh. Yahweh fits this criteria as well. He has historical continuity. He has revelation in authoritative text and oral tradition. He has a significant number of followers. We see them every day. They're called Christians. He has cultural, political, and institutional dominance. He has theological depth and composite revealed attribute set. He also has cross-cultural patterns and influence. And there is no one-to-one comparison to Yahweh himself, right? So that's the criteria I used. And by doing that, there's literally just over, or just about 300 gods that are major gods in these major continents that encompass all of the countries in the world, including the Caribbean islands. All right, so let me bring up someone who was requesting just now. Okay, they withdrew their request. I was just answering I was just responding to a claim. I was refuting a claim. Someone said that Kali is not a god of Asia. Yahweh is character made by Abraham. I would love to see you prove that, Tiger Wong. How do you prove that Yahweh does not exist and did not appear to Abraham? How do you prove that? Because that's your claim. That's your claim. How do you prove that? I don't think you can. And if you appeal to science, then you're appealing to nominal possibility and also appealing to a methodology that already assumes your conclusion, which is question begging. So I don't know what's up with that. All right, so we have another request. So I'm glad that I was able to point out to everybody who asks for evidence for Yahweh. Depending on how Yahweh is defined, that is the evidence you would see for a God like Yahweh. Okay, what's up? How's it going, Horse?
Going very good. How are you?
Doing all right.
I'm just here because you say that Yahweh's existence is objectively provable.
Right.
Show me your empirical evidence.
The environment around you is the evidence for God.
That's presuppositions of God's existence. You have to read the Bible first before the earth can be evidence of His existence. So that doesn't check the box.
You asked me to show you the empirical evidence. I just did.
No, that's not empirical evidence in correspondence theory of existence.
Are rocks empirical?
Rocks are empirical, yes.
Do rocks exist?
Yes.
With reference to how Christians define the triune God of the Bible, the
Right.
very existence of the material world is empirical evidence for that God.
Right, but that's true, justified and true within coherence theory of epistemology. So within your system, that's true.
Right.
But in reality, that requires empirical evidence of the existence of something which you cannot give for any God, not just Yahweh, any God.
And what you just said would literally commit a category error and fallacy with reference to the Christian God.
No, what you're saying is a category error.
No, what I'm saying is not a category error because I'm speaking from my worldview. The criteria that you just laid out for existence would not. Hold on.
Do you know what the subsets of belief are?
Let me lay out my statement first, okay?
Okay.
The criteria that you just laid out for existence would not apply to Yahweh because Yahweh is not defined in that way. It's a straw man fallacy. Go ahead.
No, it's not straw man. You have to understand the difference between correspondence and coherence.
What's your worldview,
belief
buddy?
is coherently true.
What's your worldview?
Your belief is coherently true.
Yeah.
Within your system,
Right.
God exists objectively.
Right.
But in the reality, you have to have empirical evidence of something for it to exist in my reality.
In your
not
reality.
just in yours.
Okay, but I don't care about your reality.
Right, and I don't care about yours. So
Okay, so why are you here?
Well, because you're making an objective claim that God exists.
And
as
I
a
just
category.
proved it from my worldview. And I just proved it from my worldview. I just proved it from my worldview.
Right, you proved it that your worldview is coherent, not that God exists in reality.
I just proved that my worldview is coherent and it also includes God's existence. So, but what is your worldview?
Right.
I haven't heard your worldview yet. I haven't heard it. Are you a naturalist? Are you a naturalist?
I'm an atheist.
An atheist is not a worldview, buddy. It's a negation. Are you a naturalist?
I don't even know what that means.
You don't even know what that means. All right, look it up.
No, your claim cannot be proved.
Because Horse, you see what just happened? I asked you what your worldview is, and you said you're an atheist, which shows me that you're ignorant about what a worldview is, and you're having a conversation with a Christian.
You're ignorant about correspondence and coherence. You don't understand the difference in epistemology.
I don't understand the difference. How do you know that?
Because you're saying that God exists objectively. Like your God himself says he needs faith.
And I
faith
just
and
showed you
can't exist in the same belief, but you say he exists objectively. That doesn't make sense. You're negating your own God's doctrine.
I am not negating my own God's existence. I'm being very consistent within the framework of my worldview. And I asked you, what is your worldview? You said atheism, which is not a worldview. So you didn't even know what you're talking about.
Does your God need faith? Does your God require faith?
Before I answer that, I want to know what your worldview is.
What kind of answer are you looking for?
You know what? Horse, we're done, okay?
Worldview?
We're done. Have a good day, buddy. We're done. Oh my God. These people are so, you know what? I'm not going to say these people. This guy is so stupid. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. Oh my goodness. He literally came up here and said that my worldview, from within its coherent framework, Yahweh exists objectively. That's exactly what I'm saying. And then I said, what is your worldview? He said atheism. Atheism is not even a worldview. And he said atheism. It's like me asking him, hey, what day is it? And then he said, I really like cheese. You answer a question I didn't even ask you. I said, what is your worldview? He doesn't even know what a worldview is. So, bro, before you come on my page, just go and learn something, man. Go and learn before you come on my page. Please, go and learn about philosophy, man. My goodness. You know what I'm going to do before I continue? I'm going to open the Encyclopedia of Philosophy on my Kindle library, and I'm going to tell you what a worldview is. Because low-tier, illiterate, ignorant people don't know what they're talking about, like to come on Christian pages. Oh, not the Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Actually, the Oxford Dictionary of Philosophy. Hold on, let me bring this up. Okay, so in the Oxford Dictionary of Philosophy, the entry on worldview is the word Weltanschauung, which is German for worldview. And it means a general worldview and overarching philosophy. A worldview, or Weltanschauung, is the fundamental cognitive orientation of an individual or society's, encompassing the whole of the individual or society's knowledge, culture, and point of view. When two parties view the same real world phenomenon, if their worldview differ, one may include elements that the other does not, leading to differing conclusions despite the shared preference point or shared reference point. So the reason why I needed to know his worldview to even have this conversation is because something he already conceded, but I would have shown him if he didn't concede it. My worldview has internal coherence, consistency, and lack of contradiction, whereas every other worldview does not have those qualities. If it's not inconsistent, it's incoherent and contradictory. If it's not incoherent, it's inconsistent and contradictory. If it's not contradictory, it's incoherent and inconsistent. It will either miss one of those qualities or all of those qualities. And even a worldview can be inconsistent, incoherent, and possessing contradictions all over. So if he had told me that he was a naturalist, because I was asking him, what is your worldview? And a worldview is actually an entry in the Oxford Dictionary of Philosophy. If he told me that his worldview was a naturalist, I would point out the contradiction. That your worldview is incoherent because it possesses a contradiction on its very foundation. In that if I were to ask you, prove naturalism is true, you would appeal to science, but science already presupposes and assumes the truth of your position being proven. That's question begging. It's based on logical fallacy. Another one would be, show me how you get certainty from the naturalistic worldview, being as science is your epistemic justification. He would say that he cannot get any certainty about anything for that matter. And then I would ask him, are you certain about your existence? Then he might say yes. That's another contradiction. After he said that he was uncertain about everything, he said he's certain about one thing. You see, guys, this is amazing. But I'm not going to be questioned, challenged, or opposed by someone who hasn't presented what their worldview is. I asked him, what is your worldview? He said atheism. That just showed me how stupid he was or how ignorant he was. So, bro, go educate yourself before you come back on my page, man. Please. I'm not gonna tolerate stupidity. All right, let me see who else is in the comments. Quinn. Quinn, I'm not gonna waste any time, man. What's your worldview before we even start? Let me write it down. What's your worldview? Okay, so this person came up and dropped down. All right, I gotta take out my pen and I gotta take out my my debate stuff to engage with what's forthcoming. That's one of the reasons why Christianity is true, guys. It is the only worldview that is coherent and possesses consistency and lack of contradiction. Even if you can find a worldview that possesses those qualities, when the question of what is it that is ultimate, that actualizes, sustains, and governs all things, the source of all possibility and impossibility, the source of all facts, when you ask them, what is it that is ultimate? That is not Yahweh, that causally institutes and causally imposes the order, structure, and aspects of reality, which are the transcendental categories. When you ask them that question, what is it? What is the something else that is not Yahweh that imposes these things? That is where the rubber meets the road. Because they often say, I don't know. Or they say, well, we don't need to have one of those. Or they say, I don't know what it is, but I know it's not Yahweh. All of those answers, all of them, every single one of them commits a logical fallacy. But anyways, let me see who else is coming up. Books. Before we even move any further, I want to know what your worldview is.
There he is.
Have we spoken before?
I don't think so. I saw you got your little notepad out.
Okay.
Yeah. You're a smart cookie, huh? You got all your little pens and your paper.
No, I'm not smart. I'm not
ready
smart.
to talk about the existence of the world.
I'm not smart.
Oh, well, at least you can recognize that.
Yeah, I'm the dumbest person on here. Okay, so what's your worldview?
What's my worldview?
Yeah.
I work with securities and bonds and investment tools. I work for a living. That's my worldview.
Okay.
What's your worldview?
Okay. Have a good day, buddy.
Yeah, right.
These people really tempt you to curse when cursing contradicts your worldview. Oh my goodness. Go look up what a worldview is, buddy. Please. Oh my God. That's amazing. That's amazing. Didn't ask you your occupation. I asked you, what's your worldview? And he says, he works in security. Oh boy. How long have I been on here? Because I have to. Let me see. Oh, only an hour and 27 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna spend 30 more minutes and then I'm gone. I'm only devoting 1 or 2 hours to TikTok. Sometimes, not every day. Let me drop Papa Drew because he's not speaking. Maybe something's wrong with his mic. Humanzi, what's up? You there, Humanzi?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay, sorry. I don't know why you can hear me before. What was your question?
Yeah, I was asking before I present my argument. I would like to know what your worldview is.
Yeah, so a lot of Christians have contention with the definition. So I often say like agnostic atheist, or I would say essentially I wouldn't make a claim that there is no kind of like there could be like a Spinoza kind of God that exists, but I don't think there's a way to know the answer to that question. But as for like a personal God or something like that, I don't think something like that exists.
Okay, so that's not a worldview. Actually, that's just a biological report of your level of persuasion or level of comprehension of a God existing. But I can work with that. It's okay.
Yeah. So how I interact in the world is essentially like that a God doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's an appeal to nominal possibility, nomological possibility, which is to say that something doesn't usually happen or something isn't usually the case, therefore it is not the case. It is not usual to see miracles. It is not usual to see the supernatural, therefore it doesn't happen. That wouldn't logically follow.
No, I didn't say that miracles can't happen or something like that. I never made that claim.
Okay, my bad.
I mean, if a God exists, if a God existed that does interact in the world, then miracles would be possible.
All right.
But the question is, does that such thing exist?
Do you think that when discussions about God are, because God is like a generic term that is applied to a supernatural entity or even a human being, the existence of a God would depend on the definition of the God. If I were to say to you that God exists and God is the cloud, that's evidence for God, right?
That's a tough part, right? Because I often have conversations with people and it's like, well, what do you mean by God? Like, if you're just going to define all of the laws of logic and these kinds of things as God, well then yeah, I can say I believe in God. But that's not what people mean when they say God. And I feel like it's disingenuous to say that, right? Like, I wouldn't claim that a God exists because the person on the other side of me does not have that in mind when I refer to something such as God, right?
Right. So all I'm pointing out is you would agree with me that words have meaning and defining your words are important for conversations, right?
Exactly. And words don't mean anything inherently, right? Like, words mean what we mean when we say them.
I think that words represent reality because words exist because they reflect something in reality. Like a dog is probably the word English for that's the English word for dog, but people have other words that they will use for a dog because words reflect things in reality. It's basically what I'm saying.
It's like a shared, like we have agreed to call this thing dog. Right?
Yeah, in the English speaking world, but the concept or the thing itself is reflected in reality. So we add a name to it. So
yes.
So what I'm basically saying is, as you can see, Yahweh's existence is objectively provable. I'm not saying God's existence is objectively provable because God can be anything. God could be your shoe. God could be the hair on your head. And therefore it exists because you have hair on your head actually in reality. What I'm saying is that...
You're claiming a specific God.
Yeah, a specific God.
With attributes.
Right. So this particular God, Yahweh, is defined as that which is ultimate, the unifying causal natured entity who actualizes, sustains, and governs all of reality, which would necessarily mean that if you look for evidence for a God like that, the evidence would literally be existence itself. Do we have existence? Yes. Therefore, Yahweh exists. That's how we simply say it. If I were to say to you that God is a physical object, on the other hand, and you say to me, okay, where is the physical object God? And I say, I don't know. There is none. Then that's a proof that there is no God. There is no Yahweh. But to say that there is no evidence for Yahweh, the creator, when creation itself would prove he exists, is a non sequitur.
Yeah, but I think you did something there that, and I'm not a kind of Phil Bro person, so I'll probably stumble over the exact terminology or whatever. But I don't know if that's begging the question, but it sounds like you could be correct in what you said that like evidence of God is the everything around, right?
Yeah.
But if you're like kind of retroactively saying that everything here exists, therefore God exists, you're just positing an explanation for the things. You're not actually you're not really proving anything, if that makes sense. You're just positing a grounding. That's like you already have the conclusion in your head and you just posited it there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, but that would be true only if, for my premises, I did not have any justification, because what I just said was just an informal way of presenting it, but I have a formal argument where I present it, and you have the freedom to disagree with any of the premises, and then we could get into why I think the premise is actually true and not false, which would necessitate.
Well, I guess that's so. The issue I was going to have. You could possibly have an argument that makes God, or Yahweh plausible, but to make Yahweh objectively provable, that would mean that you would have to, like, if I just change one attribute of said Yahweh, that one would have to be impossible. Like any attribute of him, I just say, well, there's actually a different God. His name is Chris. And that's the one that exists. He has basically all the same attributes of Yahweh, except for this one. But he exists.
Well, actually,
and like, if that one is not impossible, then Yahweh is not objectively provable.
Let me tell you why that doesn't follow. Let me tell you why that doesn't follow.
Sure.
The reason why that would also be a non sequitur is because there is something in logic called the possibility fallacy, where someone treats something's possibility as its actuality. You being able to come up in your mind with a God who is superior to Yahweh or possesses a different attribute set than Yahweh would not entail that is an actuality. Anyone can conceive of things in their mind, but that is exactly what it is, a conceivable abstract thing in the mind. It wouldn't matter because it's not an actual thing. However, and also it's not a one-to-one comparison, so it's disanalogous, because Yahweh has historical continuity. Yahweh has revelation and authoritative texts. Yahweh has a significant number of followers. Yahweh has cultural, political, and institutional dominance. Yahweh has theological depth and composite attribute set that is revealed in the Bible and in creation. And Yahweh has a cross-cultural pattern and influence. The thing in your mind does not, so it wouldn't matter. Anyone can come up with things in their mind.
Well, but unless you actually prove that, you did say something about Yahweh has historical relevance, like basically saying, I'm assuming when you say Yahweh, you're referring to the Jesus version of Yahweh, right?
I'm referring to the Bible's version of Yahweh. The Bible's version of Yahweh.
Yeah, but like if it was just a Torah's version, then that is sort of a different Yahweh. If you're negating Jesus being the Son of God, like if you don't think Jesus is the Son of God, that's a different God than
Jesus
the
is
Christian one, right? Because it's not a triune God. It's not a this kind of thing.
Jesus is Jesus is God, and the God of the Old Testament and the God of the New Testament are the same God. They're both wrathful and judgeful as before. And also, to say the Yahweh of the Old Testament would not be a Trinitarian God, we have to accept the historical fact that there were different sects of Israelites. There were the Essenes, there were the Pharisees, there were the Sadducees, there were the Zealots, and they had different views about God, especially the view of the two powers in heaven doctrine, which teaches a plurality in the nature and essence of God, where in Genesis chapter 19, the Bible says that Yahweh rained fire and brimstone from Yahweh out of heaven, which taught that there was a plurality in the essence of Yahweh, believed by some of the Israelites. So it would be false to say that no Israelite accepted a triunity of God or a plurality in God. What I'm pointing out to you,
you're misunderstanding my point. I'm just saying that, like, I mean, in the same way that you would say, like, the God of Islam, like, the Muslim God is not the same God as the Christian God, even though they reference the same Abrahamic God in a sense, or like their lineage is the same. What I'm saying is that if someone is denying that Jesus is the Son of God, you would probably say that they don't worship the same God, right?
Right,
you would
right.
say that they don't believe in the same God. So that's what I was trying to say when when you're saying Yahweh's existence is
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm a monolatist. I believe that there are other divine beings that are worshipped by people. I don't deny the existence of any other gods. I actually believe that they exist. What I'm pointing out is that the example you gave of you being able to think of a god in your head and it possessing a lesser attribute or an additional attribute would then mean that Yahweh's existence is not objectively provable. No, it wouldn't follow. All that showed is that you are able to conceive in your mind a natured entity that has a particular attribute set, but that being does not have any actual existence, not metaphysically, not spiritually, not to any degree, because you just made it up in your head.
Well, actually, my point was more because the evidence at that point, the only evidence you gave was existence. So, like, it's just kind of retroactively thrown in there. You're just basically saying the Yahweh God is the one who did it. I could just say, well, name another God. That's the one who did it. And I'll just give them the same attributes, but change a few. And
okay.
Now, if you're calling to historical evidence or something like this that pinpoints the specific God that you're referring to, that is a different kind of claim.
Okay.
If you're just making the claim that existence, therefore Yahweh, I feel like that was a bit too, like you're not actually making a claim for a specific God.
All right, let me jump on it, because as I said earlier, it was a simplified presentation. Someone could not say, well, I could just name another God that actually has, historicity, significant number of followers, etc., and this God could be the one that, made everything. Therefore, Yahweh's existence is not objectively provable, because I could just name another God. You could name another God, and we could go through their particular attribute set and see if their attribute set, and here's why Yahweh is the actual God who did it. We can see if their attribute set is reflected perfectly in the created order itself. Because the argument that we use, and I'm going to lay out the argument for you in a sec, is that with reference to the created order itself, there are a multiple amount of natured entities that are proposed as the ultimate. How we show that Yahweh is the one that is right and all others are wrong is because of his unique attribute set, in that you cannot find any other ultimate natured entity presented with the same attribute set or a superior attribute set. And I'm going to point one out. You will never find, and you can look this up right now if you want, ChatGPT, Google, anywhere. You will never find that another natured entity that has ever been proposed is a triune natured entity. You never find a trinity outside of Yahweh. You only find triads or polytheism, but never a trinity. That's just one of them. Do you think,
sorry to interrupt you, I just want to make a point on that point. Do you think if a God existed, like, if there's a creator that exists, that he would necessarily be known to us? Like, is that a quality that is of any kind of God that would exist? Like, if a God existed, we would already have him named and already, like, is that a necessary thing? Because basically you're saying any other God that we know about is not triune. I mean, like, but that also lays the claim that we would know of this God. There could be another triune God that was not named yet. Like, we could name him today. We could find out his name today, and therefore we would know who he is.
Okay, so the response to the presentation, there could be, does not refute the position, because I could literally say from my worldview that there is none. There is no other natured entity that possesses that. And somebody could ask me, how do you prove that? How do you justify that? I have actually done the transcendental analysis of all of the major gods, of all of the major continents, and compared them to Yahweh. So I'm not simply making an assertion that there is none. I'm making the assertion that I have done the studying and I have done the research and have the proof that there is none. Somebody saying as a response to that, but there could be, is not a negation of the presentation. It's just a question, which is not an argument or negation. So I'll be asking you, what would be your negator for my claim that Yahweh is the only one? You saying there could be is not a negator. It's just a question.
Well, no. That's different, because you're not making the claim that, like, the problem is your claim, right? Like, your claim is not that, like, I have a reason for you to believe in Yahweh being the God, like, is God. Your claim is that I have infallible proof that this is definitely the God, and no one could basically, like, there is no possibility that it could be any other God. You've made the claim that like, we could not, like, you've made the claim that God could not be hidden, and we don't know about him yet.
Okay. Perfect.
You've checked every major God. Right?
All right.
Well, there's no, like, you haven't made a claim for why it would have been necessarily one of the major gods. You haven't made a claim about why we would know which God it is. Like,
Because
there was
of
a point in time, possibly before they knew. Like, Jesus came at a point in time at 2,000 years ago. How do you know the actual, like, I'm making something up, but this figurative Chris Jesus is going to show up 2,000 years from now? Like, it's a point in time. You haven't, like, made any reason for me to think that there is not possibly another God.
Yeah, the earlier question you gave, and I think it's foundational to this, is do I think that if a God existed, he would necessarily reveal himself, or would revelation be a necessary quality of this God? And my response to that was going to be, because I didn't get a chance to respond to it, it was going to be, in order for any statements, propositions, or knowledge claims to be made about God, he has to first reveal himself. And I would go on to say that any God that has not revealed itself, with reference to my worldview, does not exist, because they haven't revealed themselves. So I'm talking from my worldview perspective. You're coming from an I don't know, I'm unconvinced, I'm not sure, well, there could be, well, there's possibly, and all of that. None of those things are arguments against my position. They're appeals to incredulity and argument from ignorance fallacy. So I want to keep this
it's
on.
It's not a fallacy. It's not a fallacy.
What's not a fallacy?
Tell me why my point is a fallacy.
To say that something could be, to say that something is possible, to say that, well, you're not sure, you don't know, and this is supposed to entail the non-existence of Yahweh. All of those are fallacies, all of them. Or unless you're not saying that they entail the non-existence of Yahweh.
No, I think you misunderstand what that, like.
All right, so let me ask you very quickly.
Yeah.
Are you saying that Yahweh does not exist?
I'm not claiming that Yahweh. I mean, I would claim that Yahweh does not exist, but that is not the point in this part of the argument.
So, are you claiming that Yahweh doesn't exist? I want to get to what matters to the conversation, because I'm not really concerned about whether or not you're convinced. I want to know what your claim is. Are you saying Yahweh doesn't exist, or you're unconvinced that he exists?
Well, I guess the argument we were having was that Yahweh is definitely not objectively provable. And so in that sense, I am not making the claim that Yahweh does not exist. I'm saying that you can't objectively prove Yahweh. Now, if we were having a different question, a different argument, I could, make arguments about Yahweh not existing, but that is not really wasn't my purpose in this conversation. I was trying to point out that your argument is flawed because you can't objectively prove Yahweh.
I wouldn't say that my argument is flawed, because something is proven when there is a positive presentation of it, and the absence, absence combined with the absence of any rational negators. Something is proven when it is presented positively, and now these two things have to be in place, and the absence of rational negators. So I'm going to present the argument, three premises followed by a conclusion. Three premises followed by a conclusion. Wait. Are you saying that something can be true? Okay, so what is the criteria for something being true? Hold on.
Positively made a claim, right? Like you've made a claim. You've presented evidence for said claim, and there is no counter evidence towards that claim, right?
No, it's still broken.
Like it is then proven, right?
All right. Back to what I said. So I gave a criteria for when something is proven to be true from my worldview lens or worldview perspective, and you said no. So what is it that proves something to be the case in your worldview?
Well, if you were trying to say something is proven, you would have to basically show that it cannot be any other case. Not that no one has presented evidence counter, because my lack of being able to come up with a counter to you does not make you correct.
But I told you that this is what is true of my worldview, which means that you would have to tell me what your worldview is that gives you a different criteria for what is proven to be true. You haven't done that yet. All you're doing is speaking in vagueness. All you're doing.
Well, no. I mean, I can think of a specific example, right? For instance, like Newton came up with the theory of gravity, right? We had a theory of gravity that we went by for a very long time. Then we found out that, well, actually, for some reason, Newton's theory of gravity does not work with Mercury. Mercury has, like, there's an offset for gravity.
Humanzi. I don't want to be rude to you, man. I'm going to ask you again. What is your worldview?
I mean, if you want, like, I guess you could say, like, a materialist kind of worldview.
Okay. How do you know that only the material world exists?
Well, I'm open to being proven wrong
You see what just happened? You see what just happened? I don't know if you're doing this on purpose or you're playing games. I realize that when I ask you a question, you dodge the question. Okay, so I'm going to ask you again. Since your position is that materialism is true, how do you know it's true?
Well, I have no counter evidence to show that it is not true, but I wouldn't. This is the difference. You're trying to say
that's the argument from ignorance fallacy.
Again, you're not letting me finish. I'm saying that I am open to being proven wrong. I'm open to seeing something that would not be explainable, or being able to see a miracle and then being able to see that, oh, look, there are things outside of the material world or whatever. But until I've seen something like that, why would I assume those things do exist?
Okay, so I'm pointing out that the very foundation of you holding to that worldview perspective is itself appealing to a logical fallacy called appeal to ignorance fallacy. You hold to that view because you have not seen any counter evidence to it, which is why you think it's true, is a fallacy in and of itself. So that's what I'm pointing out, bro. You're arguing against my worldview while standing on a worldview foundation that is a logical fallacy.
No. See, you just we were talking about your point of view about, you said something was objectively proven. I was just pointing out that unless you have a different definition for the word proven, like, which I guess is maybe what you have. Your definition of proven is just like, from what I understand, is just like, until I have evidence to the contrary, it's proven.
No. That's why I said the positive presentation is also what we appeal to. What I was pointing out is that proof is not persuasion, Humanzi. I am not saying that when people hear my proof or my argument, they are going to automatically believe. And I'm saying that proof is not persuasion, because this is very important to lay out. A lot of people in this world think that because they are not convinced of the proof presented to them, that therefore means it has not been proven or it is not objectively provable. The Christian worldview has a positive presentation, and that positive presentation also involves the lack of any negators. but is not only the lack of any negators, because that would be appeal to ignorance fallacy. It is also the positive presentation in that the Christian worldview is a model of reality where we experience intelligibility, and we do so because of the grounding where the intelligibility experience is reflected in the natured entity who created it. To refute this worldview, somebody would have to present a alternative worldview that falsifies this one. This is how it works. But you're saying that your worldview, well, I could be wrong. I don't really know if it's absolutely true. I'm open for evidence. I'm open for counters. And also saying that the reason why you hold the view is because you haven't seen any evidence to the contrary. That's an appeal to ignorance fallacy.
No, because I'm not holding an absolute position.
Okay.
You're holding an absolute position.
Okay. So your very argument is based on mystery, is what it is. Your entire position is based on mystery. You don't know it's true. You don't know it's true, and you don't really know what is true. You're just out there searching in the ether for what is true. You don't know what's true.
You're just saying that you know what's true without knowing it.
How do you know that I don't know it?
Well, we won't know if you know it until we're,
But you just said that I don't know it. You see what's happening here? Now we're actually revealing that you're a skeptic.
No, I'm saying you don't know it. I'm saying you can be correct and not know something. You can think something and be correct and not know it.
Do you have absolute certainty about anything, Fumanzi?
No. For instance, you can write a number on a piece of paper, and I can be confident what number you wrote just by guessing. I'm like, you wrote a 4, right? And you actually wrote a 4. But that doesn't mean I knew you wrote a 4. It means I guessed you knew a 4. You wrote a 4.
Uh-huh.
But I didn't know you wrote a 4.
Humanzi.
I guessed it and was correct.
Is there are there any propositions that Humanzi knows with absolute certainty, meaning Humanzi could not be wrong about the proposition?
The only thing that, to be honest, if you're trying to go down to epistemology, what you can actually know, there are precepts that we have to just accept, and those are just basically, the kind of I think, therefore I am, I am conscious, these kinds of things that you have to build off of that, right?
No, I disagree because
and logic and things like
I don't grant any of that. I don't grant any of it. Bertrand Russell and Immanuel Kant has pointed out that the Cartesian or the cogito does not have any logical entailment to what is actually being claimed. It's a non sequitur. The entire argument is a non sequitur. You don't get to I exist from I think. You don't get there because you have to prove that there is an I doing the thinking outside of there are thoughts. And with the distinction that is made by Descartes himself of appearance and substance, there is no way to step outside of your conscience to observe the substance of the thing in question being in existence. So the cogito doesn't even prove absolute certainty that you exist. So I'll appeal to that without doing the reading of the defeaters of that, because to this day, no one has refuted the critiques given to the cogito by Immanuel Kant and Bertrand Russell. So if you're going to go down the radical skeptic route, you don't even know with absolute certainty that you exist. Not even that. Not even that. So I would like to know, what does Humanzi know with absolute certainty that he could not be wrong about? What do you know?
Well, again, this is what I'm trying to point out, is that there are precepts that we have to start with.
I don't grant any of that.
But you have them yourself.
In my worldview, I have a unifier that unifies the I, that unifies intelligibility, that unifies particulars in my worldview. If you say that there are things... You
already assumed the precepts to get there.
Oh, no. Let me tell you why. The precepts that you're going to probably point out are going to be axioms. I'm going to be asking you, what is it that is ultimate that unifies those axioms? You're probably going to tell me you don't know.
I'm going to ask you, how did you come up with that?
How did I come up that there is a reason why things exist like axioms? The PSR.
So you had to use logic.
I had to use logic? Yeah, logic.
To function, you have to use logic.
Logic is a transcendental category that we have to use. But us using a thing does not negate that the thing has a reason for its existence and its usefulness, which is the PSR, the principle of sufficient reason, that things exist for a reason. I'm going to ask you the axioms that you're going to point to that you have to start with. What is it that grounds them and gives them a reason for their existence? You're probably going to tell me you don't know.
I would say that any grounding that you're using is kind of motivated reasoning.
Any grounding that you're using is not informative. There's no identifier what the any grounding is. What is the grounding that actualizes, imposes, and shows?
It's not like there are things that can't be grounded.
There are things that can't be grounded. How do you know that there are things that can't be grounded?
This is part of like it becomes a side. Like anytime you go all the way down to like how do you know anything, like it's just circular. It just is what it is. Like it's a circular.
Okay, so brute fact. You're appealing to brute facts.
Yeah, they're brute facts.
Okay, let's use that. Brute facts are arbitrary stopping points at places where we don't know what the reason is for a particular thing's existence. My question to you is, what dictates and imposes where we put the stopping point of a brute fact? Because you do know that someone could ask me, Adrian, why are you able to speak? And I say, because I just can. It's a brute fact. Somebody could ask me, Adrian, why do you sleep? I could say, because I just do. It's a brute fact. There is nothing that imposes an obligation for us to stop the arbitrary stopping point at any point. So I would ask you, what is it that informed you that that is where you should put the arbitrary stopping point, which is at axioms? Why couldn't it be actually further than the axiom?
Well, because in order, like you go back as far as you can, right? As far as your logic can allow you to go, which stops at logic, because you can't use logic if it's like you can't, like how can you logically come up with something without using it first? And you basically have to just like stop there. Like when you cannot go further back.
Okay, so I get it. So when you
circular.
So when you get to the point of the foundational axiom being circular, that's where you can't go back any further, and therefore you're saying that because of that, it has no grounding, or you don't know the grounding.
I'm saying that for you, when you posit the grounding, like I'm not saying that there couldn't be, like if you could come up with a grounding, like there could be a grounding to things, right? But you're using those things to ground it, right? Like you've already used them as like an axiom, right? Like because basically you would say you would have to say, I don't know how.
Okay, so this is what's happening.
Logic.
You're confusing ontological or metaphysical grounding with epistemic justification for that grounding. I'm not asking you about the grounding itself with reference to it being an axiom or me using axioms to justify or identify the grounding. I'm not asking you about the usefulness or utility of the thing. You and I can agree that the thing is being used right now. I'm just asking you, the thing we're using right now, what is the grounding for it? And what is the epistemic justification for knowing that grounding?
Well, I guess the problem I have here, and maybe this is not what you're doing. Okay, because when I talk to Christians in this realm, what normally happens is they'll say, well, you have no reason, like you have no reason to trust anything that you say, right? Like that's what they would say to me, because basically if I don't have the grounding of a God or something like that, then I can't know anything, there's nothing like this. But in like that trap is the similar trap that they are also in, like, because they are like, they can posit a grounding. They can say that this is the thing that allows me to know that logic is foundation, or that I can trust my own logic. But if they can't trust their own logic, then they are also possibly making an illogical claim that is the grounding for their own logic. Like you can't, you're trapped in the same scenario. So when you basically what's happening is they're not asking the question, can I trust my own logic? They're saying, I think I can trust my own logic. Why can I trust my own logic? Right? That's what they're saying. They're saying why. They're not saying can I. They're saying why.
Right, because we're not asking you about the epistemic justification. We use logic. We know there is logic. We're asking you about the ontological metaphysical justification for why logic is the way it is. And my contention is that you do not have a grounding, which is why every time you're asked for a grounding, you say, why do we need a grounding? Or I don't think there is a grounding, or I think the grounding should stop at the axiom. Because you don't have one, do you?
Well, I mean, I do not have a grounding. Like there is no grounding for these kinds of things because I have already said that they're circular.
Okay, so let's use that. You saying that you don't have a grounding does not entail that there is no grounding. It just means you don't have one because you don't know.
That's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah. So that's all I'm pointing out, bro. And this happens all the time when I have these conversations with non-believers, in that I ask you, what is the grounding? And there's a lot of backtracking before you get to the place of saying, you don't have one, but that does not entail that there is none. And when the Christian says we have a grounding, I'm not saying you did this. It probably hasn't happened yet. If you say that Yahweh is not the grounding without possessing positive information about what is the grounding, then you're committing a non sequitur. Because you not knowing.
What I would say is that you haven't given me a reason that Yahweh is the grounding.
Okay, and that's fair. That's fair. I wouldn't say I haven't given you a reason. I would say the reason I have given you is not convincing to you.
I mean, I guess you have given me some reasons.
Yeah, but they're unconvincing. They're not convincing, is what I'm saying.
No. I mean that they're not convincing in the sense that I don't think anyone should be convinced by the things you've said so far.
Now you have turned you not being convinced into a moral value claim that you don't think anyone should be convinced of that. Now you have jumped into a different form of justification as to what justifies your claim that you don't think anyone should believe those things. You can't step outside of yourself.
I didn't say no one should believe it. I said so far in our conversation, I don't feel like you've given strong evidence for that being the ground.
And that's a subjective claim.
I'm not saying that there isn't strong evidence that exists. It's like if I said the grounding actually is potatoes.
And I would respond by saying that is not true. I would literally give you a negator of that. It could be Yahweh. No, I would say it's not true because tomatoes are contingent entities that are in existence within the universe itself and depend upon something that is ultimate because it is not ultimate for its own existence. Tomatoes couldn't be it. So I would literally negate the claim itself, which is not something you're doing. You're saying I'm just unconvinced. And I don't think anyone should be convinced by the reasons you've given.
So, sure. I mean, my example is silly on purpose, but the point is that, just basically what you've done is you've, from what I've heard from you so far, and because, again, I came up here because you said it's objectively provable. I was hoping to hear something that would sound objectively provable.
Yeah, so yeah, we have the terminus point. It's Humanzi's head and level of persuasion that I'm going up against, which always comes down to Humanzi is not convinced, and that's okay. Totally fine with that.
No. You can't. I mean, sure, you can just. That's fine. You can just assume that you think you have presented enough evidence to make something should be convincible to people and is a provable statement. To me, if I were to tell someone that atheism is provable, I can prove to you that so and so didn't exist, I would find a a burden on myself to actually present evidence to someone in a provable manner, in a manner in which they would be at least convinced if they were listening, or like convinced if they were open to hearing what I was saying. What I'm saying is that like I don't feel like and I'm really open because I would love to hear what you think is really the provable point. I honestly don't feel like you've presented anything that would make me think that is true.
You honestly don't feel or something that makes you think that it has been proven. I'm gonna lay out the argument again. Premise one: if intelligibility obtains, then an ontological sufficient personal ground must exist. Premise two: intelligibility.
Do premise one. Do that one more time.
Wait. Premise one.
I want to make sure I'm following you.
Okay, sure. I'm gonna read it from my screen so that I can repeat it if you need me to exactly how I stated it.
Sure.
All right. So, if intelligibility exists, then intelligibility requires an ultimate sufficient ground. Premise one. That's premise one.
Well, why?
Let me lay out the entire argument first, and then you ask me what is the justification for each of them. Premise two: intelligibility exists. Premise three: only Yahweh, the self-existent triune God, possesses the necessary attribute set to serve as the ultimate sufficient ground of intelligibility. Conclusion: therefore, Yahweh exists. This is a modus ponens. It affirms the antecedent, which makes it valid. Now, you're going to say it's unsound because probably some of the premises are false. So, what is the justification for premise one? The justification for premise one is grounded in the PSR that things exist for reasons. Things exist for reasons.
What do you mean by things exist for reasons? Like, what kind of reasons?
Anything that you can point to in the universe has a reason for its existence, has a cause for its existence, and hence the PSR.
You mean like a domino effect reasons, not like a purpose reason.
Yeah, it goes both ways. A reason for their existence and a purpose for their existence goes both ways. So what I'm pointing out is what I'm grounding premise one on is an actual self-evident truth of reality. Things don't happen for no reason. And if anyone says that the PSR is false, you're talking to someone who is literally delusional and not in touch with reality.
But I would differentiate those two versions of reason, right? Like purpose, no, I don't agree with that. Things don't always exist with a purpose, but things do always exist as in like with a reason. Like this domino fell because another domino hit it, something like that. Then I can follow you there. But for everything to have a purpose, I wouldn't agree with that. I don't know where you would find that as a.
I'm not going to argue for everything has a purpose. I'm just going to argue for because that's going to open a whole other can of worms that I don't really want to get into. I'm just going to literally give a definition of the PSR. It is a philosophical axiom stating that everything must have a reason, cause, or explanation for being the way it is. It's an axiom. It's an axiom.
A cause. Yeah, something.
It's an axiom. So if anyone denies that axiom, they're not in touch with reality. So my premise one is based in reality. So I'm simply saying that there is a reason for existence. Premise one does not say anything about
Yahweh. I have one more caveat to carve out there, and that is that we only know that those things are true within our universe, right? Like I don't think we have intuitions about something outside of our universe.
Our intuitions are
what it's like to be a god, right?
I would say that our intuitions are irrelevant to the existence of God. It doesn't matter. All I'm pointing out is that the PSR is an axiom of reality itself. Everything must have a reason, cause, or explanation for being the way it is. If someone says the PSR is not true, then we have found someone who is not in touch with reality.
Well, does that apply to God?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, so that's my point. That's right there. You're saying it doesn't, outside of our universe, it doesn't apply. It applies within our universe, but not outside of our universe.
Wait. When I say no, it doesn't, I mean God is not a part of the created order. But it does apply to God. Yes, the universe. It does apply to God because God has a reason and explanation for why he exists. He's not a brute fact. There are no brute facts in our worldview.
What's his reason for existing?
The very fact that he is the necessary being.
Okay, so
That's a
when
reason.
you're saying a reason for existing, the reason can be that it just exists.
No. Being a necessary being does not mean that you just exist. Being a necessary being is that there is no way of you not existing, which is a reason for your existence. I could literally pull this up on Google or any philosophical literature.
Sure. But what I'm saying is, like, I could say that, like, under the same logic, I could say the universe is a necessary thing.
But you would have no empirical verification for that because the consensus is that the universe had a beginning. It was not eternal. That is the consensus.
The universe was at a hot, dense state. That's as far back as the Big Bang goes. We don't really know.
They actually speak about that point that expanded as a finite point, not an infinite point. And finite would entail non-eternal. And if you want, I could pull up quotes from leading scientists in the field of cosmology who say the universe had a beginning. The universe had a beginning of time, a beginning of matter, a beginning of space. There is no one in the scientific community within the consensus who says the universe is eternal. That's an abandoned position. So you couldn't say the universe. You couldn't say it.
No, the observable universe is what they're referring to for one. What I'm saying is I don't think people would make a claim about whatever it is to say before the universe existed, right? Or that we even have a good intuition currently about what it is like to be in such a hot, dense state, or these kinds of things is like the edge of physics that we
are. And those things are irrelevant to the actual argument about God's existence. All I'm pointing out is that to say that the universe is eternal and hence a brute fact or something existing without a reason is not a claim that is supported by empirical evidence. The vast majority of the scientific community rejects that. And those who don't propose a multiverse theory, and those who don't also propose an illusion. No, I forgot what the other position is, but they propose a multiverse theory, which is not a theory that has any empirical evidence whatsoever. It's zero when it comes on to empirical evidence, but it is an empirical claim. So it is rejected by the vast majority of the scientific community because what they actually observe is that the universe had a beginning. And hence, it's not eternal.
Right. So, I guess what I'm just I'm not trying to carve out like some sort of escape hatch for myself. What I'm just trying to point out is that this is the edge of what we know, and if you were to consider the universe, whatever it is to say something is outside of the universe. Again, that would then, I guess, redefine what we consider the universe. But basically, we just don't know much about this aspect. And maybe we will not ever be able to scientifically prove something out in this area.
And you won't because science.
I'm just pointing out our limitation on knowledge.
I wouldn't say our limitation on knowledge. I would say the scientific methodology limitation on knowledge, because science is limited. Yeah. It is an inductive principle that moves from specific examples to generalities, which means that it can never produce absolute certainty about anything. It is always open for revision, always open for change. So I'm not appealing to science as an absolute way of knowing anything. All I'm pointing out is that anyone who makes an empirical claim, well, empirical claims are proven scientifically. So if you don't have any empirical evidence for an empirical claim, then you have to throw it out. And within the scientific community, what is being said about the universe with reference to its beginning is that it had a starting point. It's not eternal. Anything outside of that is a metaphysical claim or a non-scientific claim. But science is limited. So you can't say that we don't know. You have to say that the scientific community doesn't know. And you appeal to them if you want. But appealing to them does not refute the PSR, because the PSR is an axiom. It is the fact of reality that things have a reason, cause, or explanation for being the way it is. Even God has a reason. Even God. So premise one is true in virtue of the axiom.
Okay, sure. I'll just go ahead and grant that because
I don't think that I don't think like any kind of deist God would also work in that scenario.
Premise 1 says nothing about God yet. It says nothing about God. It just simply pointing out. It's just pointing out the axiom, buddy.
Right. I know. I just know where you're going. But anyways, go. You can go to the next.
The next one is intelligibility exists, and this is proven by actual universal experience.
Yeah, sure. I don't have a problem with this.
Perfect. And then premise 3 is where the rubber meets the road, in that I'm claiming that only Yahweh, the self-existent triune God, possesses the necessary attribute set to serve as the ultimate sufficient ground of intelligibility. If premise 3 is true, then the conclusion follows Yahweh exists. So what would be your objection to premise 3?
Well, I don't see why. I mean, there are multiple things. One, I don't see the necessity for it being triune. Mm-hmm. I don't see the necessity for. I don't see the necessity for said God to be known. I don't see any necessity, or I don't see any strong, provable evidence that. If you're talking about Yahweh, that Jesus rose from the dead. And then, I mean, beyond that, I can make arguments of, like, if I was trying to contest with Yahweh, I have multiple arguments about internal consistency of like the documents we have, this, or like that Yahweh is good, or these kinds of things, but those aren't claims about him existing. So we can save those for another time.
Yeah, you would have to grant that he exists before you even jump into those. Right, right. Yeah. But we're not there yet. We're not at that place.
Yeah, exactly.
So my justification for premise 3 are these, and we can talk about them. Comparative transcendental analysis. This means that I did an analysis of all of the major gods that are claimed to be the ultimate. If Yahweh,
that I don't find that convincing at all. Like I don't care about any god that is currently presented. I don't find it necessary that we know who the god is.
Yeah. I haven't gotten to the rest of it yet.
Sorry. The other one, I just meant that, like, I don't find comparing them to other gods that we know of to be a point. Like I don't think
the reason why it's necessary is because the Bible claims that the created world is perfectly reflective of the Creator. So since there are people out there who say they believe in a God who is the Creator and it's not Yahweh, we got to examine them to see, okay, is it true? As a Christian, we're obligated to examine them to see what their attribute set is, to validate or verify and authenticate the truth of the Bible. The other one is attribute mapping, in that when we test these other gods within our worldview, whether you think it's necessary or not, when we do that, we see where the attributes of all the other natured entities are different and deficient, in that they lack something in their attribute set that would remove their ability to reflect it in reality. One example could be a God who is not loving at all to any degree, would not be able to create a universe where there is love, because the foundation itself is not ultimately loving, which would mean that it would not be reflected in the thing created. Like, you could not produce, and this is something that's even seen in reality, where even biologically, a man and a woman cannot come together and produce a cow. It's just something that does not correspond to the foundation of what produced it. So it wouldn't follow. And reductio ad absurdum, we can actually assume the truth of the worldviews that these particular gods present and identify a contradiction. I literally wrote a book on it. I haven't published it yet, but I will one day. And finally, there is something I've developed that is an axiom in reality as well. It's called the Rocks principle, rational ontological correspondence system, in that the foundation of a thing will correspond to what it comes from, or what comes from a foundation will correspond to itself. So, you can look even at a house. You can't build a house on water. It's going to sink. You can look at concrete. It has to be built on a solid foundation. You can look at biology. When you probably have kids, I don't know if you do, your kids are probably going to look like you or look like the lady friend that you have or your wife. These are things that we see that are actually grounded in reality. So from that, we say, as Christians, when you look at the structure of reality, it perfectly maps the attribute set of Yahweh. And I'm not saying that you're going to be convinced of it. I'm just saying I have reasons for my premises.
So a few of those points, I would probably go back and forth on a lot of these things, but first off, you're saying that the creation reflects the God that created, or the creator that created it,
right?
But then what you're going to do then, I'm assuming, I don't want to put this on you, but you're only going to grab some of the attributes of that, right? Like, you're not thinking that God is cruel and just causes immense pain for no purpose, and that God, because or that God is enjoys death, or likes to play, he likes to kill things, but in very grotesque kinds of ways, because you could, if you view creation through a certain point of view, you have 90% of all creatures that have ever existed are no longer existing anymore. They've gone extinct.
Mm-hmm.
You have it's immense amount of death, it's immense amount of pain and suffering and these kinds of things.
Yep.
So if you think that is an attribute of God, God God is a suffering kind of thing. He likes to see suffering, or he likes pain, or something like that. I don't think that's a claim that you're going to make, right?
I think that you've unalived the horse and you're still beating it. Let me respond. So,
sure.
How we ground all suffering, all evil, all wickedness, all bad things that people can identify is that from the attributes of God, God has a plan. God has a mind that has an eternal plan that is reflected in the created order. And all evils that take place are necessary in virtue of the source they come from, the immutable plan and mind of God. And how we say God is still good in that is by pointing to the fact that God ordains and decrees these things for a good purpose. And that good purpose is to display his glory to his elect angels and elect people, which produces no contradiction in any way, shape, or form. That is how we show the coherence, consistency, and lack of contradiction with that. So God ordains that evil exist, and all evils that take place in time are necessary to take place. There is no unnecessary suffering. And all those things that take place, all the wicked things, they're not an ultimate of reality because they're temporary things that God is using to display his purpose, which is good, holy, and perfect. And that is to display his glory to his elect angels and elect people. So that's how we ground those things. Whereas other gods, they're surprised that evil happens. They're trying to stop evil. They're trying to control evil, and they constantly fail and things like that. Well, our God, he wants there to be evil so that he can show his glory from it.
Okay. I believe, I would say that any person that I talk to of any faith would kind of be able to make explanations for why these things exist. But I guess what you're positing is that you've looked at the world, and then you look at the gods, and you're saying this God explains the things of the world that you see, and you look at the world and you're like, these are reflection of the God that I follow, and then you're looking at the God and you're saying, yeah, these seem to be the characteristics of said God, right? That's kind of what you're trying to say, right?
Actually, no. It goes from the Bible to the world, not from the world to the Bible. So we look at what the Bible says about Yahweh. We identify all of his attributes, and then we look at the world to see if the claim of the Bible in Romans chapter 1, verse 20 and Psalm chapter 19 are actually true. Because if the Bible claimed that God made the red sky, and then I went from the Bible to look at the world and I actually see a blue sky, that would be a lack of correspondence, which would make my worldview contradictory to an extent. But if I look at Scripture, and Scripture speaks about a God who is a God of order, structure, and intelligibility or intelligence, and then I look at the world and see order and structure and intelligibility, and I'm like, okay, that's a perfect mapping. And if I look at the Bible and I see where the Bible says that God uses evil, God ordains evil, and God uses evil for good, and then I look at the world and see evil, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. It's not, okay, the world, then to the Bible. It's from the Bible, then to the world to confirm the Bible, and it is confirmed in that way.
Do you get like so? Because to full disclosure, I used to be Christian, so I know some aspects of this. But then, what do you do in situations when you have clear theology that's being taught through the Bible about how like sin and death enter the world through Adam and Eve, and that is basically the pain and the suffering and all these kinds of things that we see in the world are because of said sin. But
yeah, we would say that God that is a part of God's plan, and He wanted it to happen. Therefore, it happened. Nothing happened.
No, that's not the point I was trying to make.
Okay,
what I was trying to make is that because you were talking about the Bible says the sky is red, but it's actually blue. But what I'm trying to say is that we see that death and pain and suffering existed in the world for millions of years, long before mankind ever arrived.
From an evolutionary standpoint, that I deny, but tell me what you're saying with reference to what you see the contention. Where do you see the contention?
Well, I see the contention being like if evolution is true, which I guess you don't agree with, but if evolution is true, that this kind of like death and suffering is a quality of the creation that He made, and it's not a result of sin that entered the world.
Right. So that's one of the reasons.
The reason why I bring this one up is because, at least to me, this was a big deal because, sin and death entering the world through Adam's sin, Jesus is the one who's supposed to take that away, right? Like it's the whole purpose of the whole concept.
It's a part of God's plan, but I will concede to you that if I grant that evolution is true, then the Bible is false, because that means that unalivement came into the world before sin. I don't grant evolution. I think you have to actually have life before you have evolution. But life has not even been placed in the equation yet. The Miller-Urey experiment of abiogenesis did not prove that life came from non-life. All they were able to prove is that under the right environment and in the right conditions, they can make amino acids clump together. But amino acids are not the building.
Abiogenesis, right? That's a whole other point, right?
Wait, before because we have to talk about this for a second. Amino acids are not the building blocks of life. They're the building blocks of protein, and proteins are the building blocks of life. So I can definitively say that abiogenesis is still a hypothesis that is yet to be proven, which means that the evolutionist doesn't even have life yet to claim that evolution is true. You have to have life before you have evolution.
No. What I'm trying to point out is that, like, the problem doesn't start, like, if you had God creating, if there was a God that just, like, transpermia kind of thing, right? Like, where essentially the first creatures that came onto Earth came from another planet, but you could just posit like a God that just kind of dropped it on Earth, right? Like, you just dropped the first bacteria or the first animal or whatever you want to say, just drop the first set, and then it evolved over a period of time. Like, if we want to posit that, like, let's just say that as an idea. The problem, the theological problem, is the death entering the world way before. So that's why I push. I'm not pushing back against abiogenesis. I'm just pushing back against that needs to be explained, because it's the evolution part that's the problem, not the abiogenesis in terms of your theology. Right?
Okay.
It's the death entering the world before.
Yeah, and I said I would concede to you that if evolution is true, then it would logically necessitate that the claims of the Bible about sin coming before death would be false. I did say that, and I'm not afraid to say it to anyone. However, proving that from chance and unguided processes, you can get from a simple cell, you can get from simplicity to complexity. When irreducible complexity is a fact of biology, you cannot have one property or element without the other. Otherwise, you will not have a living cell. To actually say that these things came together by chance and we went from simple to complex is a very, very big leap in faith. And I've just started studying biology and evolution, so I will be more competent in that field in a few months. But I'm simply saying that I don't see that it is convincing, even from a scientific standpoint, the probability of these things coming into existence by chance and natural selection producing these things without any guidance, any purpose, anything for that matter. These are a lot of things you have to hold by faith, because a lot of these things are not observed. A lot of these things are not repeatable. A lot of these things are not within the scope of science. They're within the scope of philosophy. And these are philosophical positions that are literally being assumed and then doing science as a result of that. But we're now in an area, bro, where I am not as competent as I wish I were. So I don't think I'm going to be able to talk as much as I can about evolution or natural selection.
That's fine. The reason why I brought that up is just that, like, that doesn't seem to map to, like, it is an observation.
Right. So if it's I'm going to concede to you. If it's a fact, then it's a problem. But I am going to, because I'm studying it right now, I'm going to be able to explain why I don't think that these things are true. I don't think evolution is true, bro. I
wouldn't go into it. To be fair, the way you've stated that is that I'm reading it to find out why it's not true. But I would.
Yeah, I have a confirmation bias, as everybody else does, bro. All of us do. Yeah,
but I really think, like, I love to be proven wrong, right? Like, I'm literally in this conversation with you right now because I would love to hear, like, what is convincing to you, because for me, I went through the opposite process, right? Like, I used to be Christian. I was very Christian, and then I know you may have a theological difference in me claiming that I used to be Christian, but I used to be Christian, and then I was convinced that I didn't think that Yahweh was the God, or that if he was, he wasn't good, right? Like, he would be a kind of an evil God kind of thing, but more convinced that he didn't exist. But that was through my study of trying to just kind of, like, really try to understand the world and try to understand if my faith, like, if it was true. I wanted to be able to teach other people. I wanted to make sure my theology was correct. And I felt like a big weight of that. Like, I wanted to make sure that I was teaching people the right thing. And so I challenged my own ideas, but that led me away. But I just, if you're trying to understand it, you don't go into it looking for why it's fake. You go into it looking for why do people believe it?
The reason why I think I'm justified in saying that it's false is because of the philosophical foundation of it. And it's naturalism.
Okay.
And science itself presupposes methodological naturalism, which
That's true.
Yeah,
I would agree with you.
Yeah, the reason why I start off by saying it's false is because it is based philosophically. It is based on question begging. That naturalism is true because science, but science already presupposes naturalism, so you haven't proven naturalism. I think that science should stay in the scope of science, which is that you make observations and then you make generalities from those observations, and you still qualify everything you say by saying we could be wrong and we are not absolutely certain that this is true. Scientists make claims. Science doesn't say anything. The scientists do. But every honest scientist will always tell you our conclusions are open for revision and our conclusions are not absolutely certain. So, bro, if I'm looking for truth, I don't go to science, because truth, by definition, can't be wrong. So I wouldn't go to science to find truth. I would go to that which has a philosophical basis for truth, and those claims being absolutely certain. And within the Christian worldview, I think we have that, in that if we grant that God does exist and God knows all things, then that would logically entail that anything he says about himself and the universe is absolutely true. And that's just being internally consistent. I wouldn't go to science to find those things. I wouldn't go to
I will
science.
make one point along. It's a bit tangential, but it's a little bit along with what you're saying. One of the main things that caused me to one of the main issues I struggled or wrestled with was that or at least one of the questions that at least made me really have to make sure that I was correct was that morality, if Christianity is true, then it presents a specific worldview with a specific set of morals,
right?
And that those morals are contingent on that worldview, right? They are only good necessarily. There could be correlation, but they're only good necessarily if that religion is true. Or if Christianity is true, then those sets of morals are the correct morals. But those morals that you were given from Christianity could actually be bad things to do if Christianity isn't true. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. It would follow. Yes.
Yeah. So because my objective was to be a good person. I wanted to be a good person, and I wanted to help other people be a good person in this kind of concept, which meant that I had to make sure that I was correct in what are you supposed to do? Which meant I had to make sure that I am aligned with the correct morality set or the correct worldview.
So have you found the correct morality set?
I mean, for me, I would say, I guess if I wanted to, I'll be honest with you, right? So, some people want to argue about it. I much more be personable, but when you go into atheism, or basically not believing that there is a some kind of, I have problems with calling it objective moral, because I don't think it's objective. Under Christianity, I don't think that's objective morals. Those are subjective towards God. But morals are... The question about morality is, what is the aim? What are you aiming for? So under Christianity, the aim is to be in line with God, right? To be in line with God. And so under another moral set, the aim is what? For people to be... to benefit all mankind, or to be, however you want to phrase it is complicated, but basically just saying to treat people equally, to basically the half of the golden rule, right? To love your neighbor as yourself, kind of thing. Not the God part, but the love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah. So, if you do an internal critique, I would say that Christians have a basis for objective morality, and because they believe that their morality is objective, we have historical documentation that Christians actually went out of their geographical locations to other geographical locations to impose their beliefs on other people, like India, where they practiced something called suti. It's called widow burning. If a woman's husband passed away, she was obligated to be burned with his body. Foot binding by China, Christians stopped that. Genital mutilation by Africans in certain areas of the world, Christians also stopped that. We believe that our morality is objective. That is why when we see evil, we try to stop it. That is why within our worldview, internal critique standpoint, it is objective morality. But from an external critique, from somebody who thinks all morality is subjective, you are going to see subjective morality. The question then becomes whose morality is correct, and what basis does someone have to say from a subjective worldview standpoint from what basis does that person have to say that their morality is correct and all other morality is false? You wouldn't be able to say that.
This is where, like, I guess I have a qualm with the word objective, in the sense that, like, because I feel like it implies something that's not actually true. I mean, I could say
independent of human minds is what we mean in our worldview.
Yeah, but that's not what you mean, actually, because if there was an alien, you wouldn't say that his view is objective.
From an internal critique standpoint, I would say yes. If an alien came to Earth and imposed their morality on us, I would see that as an example of objective morality because of how I define it, which is that it is independent of human minds. An alien is not a human being.
Oh, that's fair. That's fine then. That's totally fine.
Yeah, what you're saying is consistency. You're seeing is consistency.
No, what I'm saying is, if you're arguing with someone else, and I, as a third party, am like, if you guys both come to me and you want an objective point of view, I am objective about you, the two other people. By objective, you just mean not biased in relation to the two people that are communicating.
Actually,
it would mean by objective.
Actually, it would mean in that scenario, it would mean you are objective with reference to the topic that is brought to you from the people. That you can actually be a neutral listener in the conversation about a topic. But when we're talking about that which is ultimate, I don't think that neutrality is possible. Either it is Yahweh or it's not. That's a true dichotomy. Either Yahweh is that which is ultimate, or he's not.
But what I'm saying is the word objective you're using right there.
Yeah.
That's why the whole alien thing. That's why I was saying you wouldn't call that objective, but you did.
Yeah, I did, because
an alien objective, because we're not even positing that the alien is smarter than us. The alien could be dumber than us, but it can communicate. But the fact that it is outside of us, that's what you're calling objective.
What I call the alien example is you using a hypothetical to test my logic, and that's how we usually test logic. We use hypotheticals, and this is not the first time I heard this. I am going to be consistent the entire way. In the Christian worldview, morality is independent of human minds. That's why we say it's objective. And it being independent of human minds, we have a justification for saying that our morality is objective. If you say that, as you did, what if an alien came down and they had their own morality? Then we would say that that is objective. And then we would probably impose our morality on that alien, because we would say that ours is right and everybody else's is false or wrong.
That's fine. No, that is totally okay. And I can actually go, if you want, if that is your definition of objective, then I will grant you that your morality is subjective.
It's objective.
It just doesn't mean,
it's objective,
right? It doesn't mean what anyone hears when they hear you say it.
Yeah, that's why I think explanations are important, man. And I think, but
I just mean it doesn't have power either.
But let me push back on something.
True.
Let me push back. I would agree. It doesn't entail true. But let me push back though. If you're coming from a worldview perspective where morality is subjective, then don't you agree with me that you actually removed your ability to say that your morality is true or right and all others are false? You would be left in a place where you don't really know with absolute certainty.
I think you're kind of right if I want to use the same language, but that's more of like a semantic trap. This is not me trying to evade. This is me actually trying to wrestle with this concept. So I'm speaking very honestly with you, and hopefully you can tell that what I'm saying. But so I think there's a problem with the semantics or the wording that you're using there. Because like when I ask you what do you mean by morals, or what do you mean by good? Like what do you mean?
Ethical values. Something is wrong. Something is right. Something is something we ought not do X, or we ought to do X. It's wrong or right. Value judgments.
But so the problem I have there is that in almost every case, to use an ought, you need an aim. You need an aim to contextualize the ought. Like for instance,
I would say you need authority and accountability.
No. I don't mean that. I mean that like I mean, that, like, good. Like, if I say this is you've probably heard this example before, but if I say this is a good knife, what do you mean?
I think that's gonna depend on a particular standard of testing what a good knife is, which is still going to point back to my worldview that we have an objective standard to test distinct moral values and judgments as being wrong or right or true or false.
But what do I mean by a good knife? What's the good in relation to?
You would have to define that. You would have to define that because
the purpose of the knife?
You're pointing to an object, a physical object, which has nothing to do with morality. I would say that an action should be what we discuss. An action. Is an action good or bad, and why it's good or bad, and why ought we not do the action if we say it's bad? So you would have to...
if you could play with me just for a moment, and then I'm moving it directly to the morals right after this. But like, in order for me to say this is a good knife, right? Like, when I'm implying something that I didn't say, right? Like,
okay, you're implying purpose. You're implying, can the knife do what it is intended to do? I can concede to you.
Is it good at cutting?
I can concede to you that when we're talking about objects like knives, phones, cars, houses, stuff like that, we're talking about their ability to accomplish a particular task. Let's see how you square that with an action as being good or bad.
Sure, exactly. So when we talk about something being moral or something being good in relation to like a moral quality or something like that, there is something I'm implying there as well, right? Now, when we talk about these things with each other, we both think we're implying the same thing. Right? Like, no, we may not be implying the same thing. Like, you may be saying that's wrong to do because God says that's wrong to do, or it's in the Bible, it's wrong to do. And I'm giving like a simplistic, like that might not be actually what you would think.
Look, the philosophical term for what you're arguing for is utilitarianism. We can just say it. I'm not a utilitarian. I don't think that the aim of something. All right. Are you saying that you don't hold a position that the usefulness of a particular act categorizes it as being good or bad? What it accomplishes, the benefits that it gives to society, will determine if it's good or bad? You're not saying that?
So I guess you could say that I am saying something like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, so I don't think that there's actually anything different between utilitarianism and what's the other one? Like, basically the action itself being good. There's a word for like the value of the
okay, so I could call it utilitarianism then.
You could, but it's going to be, when you say that, it's simplistic. Like, what I'm saying is, like, when someone hears that, they're going to think that I mean, like, we should
aim for the actions that are the highest benefit.
And give the liver to the one guy and give the lungs to the other person. But that's
no,
not what I mean.
actually, those are the extremes that would actually point out inconsistencies with utilitarianism. Those are the extremes that tell you that.
Those are the extremes of not actually defining the aim correctly.
I would say those are the extremes that are hypotheticals that test the logic of utilitarianism, that point out inconsistencies. Because if the aim or the goal is the reduction of harm or the increase of happiness or the reduction of victimhood by oppression, if the goal is that and an action is aimed at that, then the action becomes good. Then we have to ascertain who decides what the goal is. Because someone could say that feeding all the poor is good, and someone could say that feeding all the poor is bad. Someone could say that. Who determines what is beneficial? And do we ignore the opinions of masochists, people who say that they love pain and do unto others as you would love them to do to you, would lead to a culture of masochists just hurting people all over the place because they like to be hurt and they like to hurt. It goes into a whole can of worms where you get into the slippery slope of now you're having to justify particular actions because you have a problem of identifying who actually decides what's beneficial, the victims or the oppressors, the majority or the minority, the culture or the entire world. Or are we going to, or is it, one last thing, or is it convergence? Where we all converge, or where we seem to converge on what is right and what is wrong and what is beneficial, is actually what determines what is wrong and what is right.
So I think that this is what's happening here is we're trying to identify, I would agree that we all seem to have some kind of moral that we are appealing to, right? You would call that that's God, our God-given conscience, or this is this.
Right, which is a form of evidence for God. But let me hear what you're going to say, because you were going to go somewhere before I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what I was trying to say is that utilitarianism gets, I think, it gets a bad rap in the same way that it's basically pointing out the same things that we would have with AI, right? If we give AI a very strict command, then it will follow that command to infinitum, and it will build a billion paper clips and destroy the world.
Actually, I'm pointing out I'm pointing out that utilitarianism has an epistemological problem to actually identify what the good is and what the benefit is, because it could be defined by anybody. Is what I'm saying. I think this is happening in America right now, where you have a president who, I think, man, I'm not going to use him or anybody else. I'm going to use a hypothetical world where a country thinks that oppressing another country will result in the benefit of the country that's doing the oppressing. A utilitarian could not have any argument against that because it's literally benefiting. How would that utilitarian have an argument against a bigger country oppressing another country that's smaller, which will result in the maximum benefit of the majority of people in that scenario?
Because this is where maybe utilitarianism is not the best
right
word to use for what I was for what I was trying to say. Because I had initial contention with utilitarianism. What I was trying to say is that if the aim is something simple like reduction in harm, or something simple like the most monetary benefit towards the country, then that isn't the issue. Is the aim that was chosen. That is not so it's it's the issue is the precision in which you name the aim. That is the problem there. If you have enough qualifiers in the name of the aim, then you do get the most benefit. You do find the correct thing. Does that make sense, what I'm trying to say?
It does make sense, but I think that there are some questions that you would struggle with in that sense. So we basically don't have a label for your moral framework from philosophy. All I can go with is what you say and what you define. So I'm just going to ask you a question. Would you say that reduction of victimhood would be an aim that would make the action of reducing victimhood a good action?
But not absolutely.
Okay.
As in
it doesn't have to be absolute. It doesn't have to be absolute. Just want to hear a concession that it would be a good action. Yeah. And would you say?
Sure.
Okay, so let's use the example of an actual real world situation that goes on in America. Christians outnumber transgender people by a lot. And Christians are being asked to literally, from their worldview standpoint, lie to people who men who think they're women and women who think they're men by affirming their identity. And a Christian would say that they feel oppressed because they think that they have to lie to these people. But these people who are transgender, they would say that they feel oppressed because they're not being affirmed in their identity. However, they do fall in the minority, the vast minority. I think it's like less than 5%, or maybe a little bit more. I don't know.
It'd be way less than that.
I don't know. It's a very
1%,
small number. It's very
maybe
small.
less, yeah.
So if someone takes an action to reduce transgenderism because it would result in less victimization by removing victimhood from the Christian community, would you say that it is a good action to reduce transgenderism? I'm pronouncing it wrong, but I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say, and I'll answer your question. I don't have a problem with that, but I will qualify and say that, like, my ability to identify what the correct moral in the situation is not like is not the point at the moment, right? Like, it's not like you're not saying, like, if you were to talk about the like Christianity, you're not saying that you know what the right moral is in every situation. You're saying God knows what the right situation is.
Right. So in that situation, eradicate the transgender ideology altogether would be a good action. But in your worldview, I think that you would say that the act that aims toward reducing victimhood would be to fall on the Christian side, because you have the majority of people no longer being victims by reducing or wiping out transgenderism. You would say that you would be against transgenderism in that sense, right?
No, that's
an inconsistency.
I guess I wouldn't have phrased my more like I would. This is why that specific moral that you referred to. Like, I'm saying, I think that it is good to reduce this, but I qualified it. But in a situation where you're saying there's 1% of people that are transgender, and you have all of these other people that feel like that they are having to adjust themselves to this other group of people.
Yeah, they feel oppressed. Your reduction of oppression would literally commit you to falling on the side of the Christians. And if you don't, you have a contradiction.
Sure. So in this situation, what I like, if I was trying to say what I thought was the moral situation here, or like what I think would happen, I mean, this breaks down into multiple different aspects, right? There is like what I think is a legal situation, which is different than morals. What I think is a person's morals, like what they should do in this situation. And it depends on which person you're referring to. Or you're saying, like, what should the law be at the situation? What should the Christian do in this situation?
Good question.
Person do?
Good question. I guess I would have to get some clarification from you. When you say that morality should be based on reduction of victimhood, would you say that morality should be consistent with the law of the land, and that the law of the land should aim at doing that as well because it's the right thing to do?
I don't think laws are morals. I don't think they're the same thing.
Yeah, I agree with you, but would you say, because I wish that my Christian morality was imposed by law. Are you saying that you wish that reduction of victimhood was imposed by law?
In some respects, like when they're egregious, yes.
So that means you would agree. Well, I don't think that you're going to agree, but I think that you would agree that Christians should be the ones to be chosen over transgenders, since that would result in the vast reduction of victimhood, right?
No, so if you're asking me what a Christian should do in that scenario.
Oh, boy.
Because it's a different question. Like, if you're saying what's the like the legal situation, I don't think that this problem is a legal situation at all. I don't think there should be any law with respect one way or the other. If you're talking about what an individual would do, even if I disagreed with the person's like their pronouns or something like that, I would probably adapt to that person, because I am referring to them, and I'm trying to show them love, right? Like, I'm trying to show that I hear.
Yeah, that's because you think love is tolerance. But I think that I've found the contradiction where you would not actually follow the reduction of victimhood principle that you say you follow. That's a profound contradiction, and it shows, as I said, what I've been saying earlier, every non-Christian worldview will have an inconsistency, incoherence, or contradiction. But we've been talking for over 2 hours now, man. Yeah. So we'll talk again some other time. Darth, welcome back, my friend. How you doing, man?
Ahoy.
What are you doing? How you doing, man? It's been a good day. I don't know why TikTok wasn't allowing me to bring you up yesterday. I don't know what the hell is going on.
It was probably a glitch.
It's good to have you back, man. Good to have you back.
Yeah. Okay, I'm done with my Van Til book. Now I have to read the other Van Til book on ethics. It was shorter than I thought, the introduction to Van Tilian theology and apologetics. It was just as, for a book, it was kind of a brief overview. I expected it to be a little bit more expansive, but I can get that in other works, like from Bonson. But I got to finish. Maybe this weekend I'll finish the book on Van Til and ethics. That should be good.
Yeah. I'm rereading the objective proof for Christianity. I have to revisit that.
Oh, I have to do that too. It's
an amazing
Joshua
book.
Pillows did a great job on that book.
The first time I read it, I think it was like it's almost a year now since I read it. I got to go back to it, man. It was gold. It was gold.
Yeah, because you forget certain things.
Yeah, my favorite part is about God as the all conditioner. That's amazing.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yep.
He conditions
used in the little booklet that he wrote for lay people. Why I am a Christian. He refers to God as the all conditioner.
Yeah, it's in the book too. It's in the book. It goes simplistically like this: God is the conditioner for all the things that conditions everything.
He's the ground of being.
Yeah. It's beautiful. But how he explains it is way better than I can. So I got to revisit the book and go through that.
Joshua has really mastered tag for somebody that young, so I have a lot of respect for him.
No, he's actually a brother in Christ. He's a Lutheran. Presbyterians, Lutherans, Anglicans, and Reformed Baptists. We all call them brothers in Christ.
And he's a nice guy too.
Yeah, his debate with T Jump, I mean, when I heard you debate T Jump, it was a vindication, man. I was waiting for someone to point out.
T Jump is a fool.
I was waiting for someone to put T Jump in his place because T Jump is such a dishonest interlocutor, man.
I'll have to listen to that. It's even more. I mean, what you say is accurate, but he's not playing with a full deck, right? I've had 2 encounters with him. I asked him, since you reject that God is the creator and the single causal principle that dictates what is and cannot be, I said, what ultimately dictates all that is and cannot be? And he says, reality. I mean, this is a colossally stupid answer because the term reality is a term of abstraction. It just means everything.
Yeah, and if you're using that, you're committing the reification fallacy because it's a stipulation of abstraction that does not answer the question.
How does my right pinky fingernail take part in actualizing the nuclear reaction inside the sun?
I mean, Darth, because they don't have an answer, they will say things like, "Why do I need an answer?" or "I don't need an answer," or there is no answer, or prove that this is the answer that you gave. None of those are arguments against the position. None of them. They're incredulity.
They're all specious.
They're incredulity. They're appeals to incredulity and ignorance.
We got someone wanting to come up here.
Yeah, bring him up.
Welcome to. What do you want to talk about?
Welcome. I would like to hear how you can objectively prove God's existence.
Well, you start with understanding how we objectively prove something. To objectively prove something, you must present positive propositional support for the thing in contention, combined with the absence or impossibility of its negation. So in the Christian worldview, we look at the world as it presents itself to us from the smallest to the possible scale. And what we see is overwhelmingly and uncontroversially. These are two important key words. Overwhelmingly and uncontroversial, the world appears to be the product of ultimate intentional design, with the impossibility of its negation by invoking that the world is an illusion of design. Now, when I say uncontroversial, atheist academics with PhDs by the literal dozens, many dozens, have gone on record in their own writings, books, papers, admitting that the world appears to be designed, but that it's an illusion of design. So there's only two options. Either the world appears to be designed because it is, thereby indicating God and by his purpose, or you're going to have to stake out that the world is an illusion of design. There is not another option. It would be absolutely colossally foolish and stupid to try to argue that there's not an appearance of design. Okay, so I just gave you the objective proof for God's existence.
I disagree with your premise of design.
Okay, are you disagreeing that the world appears to be designed?
Yes.
Okay, can you explain to me why literally dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of atheist academics with PhDs in their own books and scholarly papers assert, yes, the world appears to be designed, but it's an illusion of design. Why is there so much agreement on that among atheist academics?
I don't really care, frankly. Could we have a conversation about
that's not a rebuttal. Okay, that's a sleazy. Hey, dude, I'll kick you in the back. Shut up! I'm talking. I'm a co-host here. Okay, wait. I don't tolerate. Listen, if you want to bring a mature, adult rebuttal, I will listen to you. But I am not going to tolerate for 1 second stupid teenage responses like "I don't care." Now, I raised a valid point, and you are obligated to respond to it. Don't respond to it like an adult, and you're going to be instantly kicked. Now, why is it that dozens and dozens and dozens of atheist academics have gone on record in their own published works that the world appears to be designed? Why are they saying this?
I do not know these atheist people you're talking about.
Okay, do you know who Richard Dawkins is? Do you know who Richard Dawkins is?
I do. I think he's pretty terrible at arguing for atheism, actually.
Okay, we're not talking about him arguing for atheists, okay? He wrote a book called The Blind Watchmaker. Have you ever heard of it?
I've heard of the book. I haven't read it.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not familiar
and so
with the concept.
Richard Dawkins has quite a bit expertise in understanding and defending the theory of evolution. And in the book, he says the study of the biological world and all of its complexities, it appears to be designed, but it's not. And then he goes on to argue for the illusion of design via natural selection. Leonard Susskind, world-renowned physicist, atheist, and he's a physicist of the order of Stephen Hawking. And when asked, does the universe appear to be designed or fine-tuned? And he said, yeah, it appears that way. He goes, but we used to think that way about biology too. And one day we'll discover the mechanism that produced this appearance. Okay, I mean, I could go on and on. Ernst Mayr, the Charles Darwin of the 20th century, said the same thing. So do you understand? Okay, so do you understand that?
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, in a second. Do you have how old are you?
I'm 18.
Okay, so that explains your ignorance. You have no idea what you're talking about, but go ahead.
Why do we have tailbones?
Okay. Your tailbone has attachments that aid in the relieving of your bowels, and it also aids in sitting down and sitting up. Okay. If you want to appeal to evolution, go ahead, because you're talking to one of the most well-informed people that you will ever encounter on TikTok refuting evolution. Okay. Now, notice how you've backed away. Now, the world is the world from the quantum realm all the way up the scale to the cosmological. Does it display complex form and function?
Can I? Okay, the tailbone example was bad. Can I give another
Okay,
example?
sir, dodge one more time and you're gone.
What?
Did you listen to the question that I just asked you?
You asked if there were some complex things in the universe. Which
No, that's not what I said. So you're not even listening. Okay, so you know what? Dodge one more time and you're gone. Does the world as we examine it from the quantum level all the way up the scale to the cosmological level, does it display or reveal an unimaginable amount of complex form and function?
It's not unimaginable, but yes, it is a very complex.
Okay. You know what? You are an ignorant 18-year-old. Do you have any idea?
I'm trying to have an honest conversation.
Okay, you are very. Okay, goodbye. Goodbye.
Okay, you're on it. You're dishonest. Okay, you just left. That's embarrassing. Okay, Adrian, can I talk to you?
No.
I really want to have an honest discussion.
I don't talk to people who deny that the universe appears to be designed. You guys are crazy. No, you're not talking to me. Not gonna happen. I'm actually surprised Darth kept you up this long. Hey, Darth, I'm gonna have to bring you back up. Looks like you dropped by accident. Darth, I'm amazed that you kept him up this long. When I use your design argument and I ask them, do you think the universe appears to be designed? And they say no, that's an immediate kick. I don't talk to delusional people, man. I don't. You deny the universe appears to be designed, the conversation is over.
Yeah.
It's over.
Yeah, so he couldn't possibly be as ignorant as one would imagine. This is defiance. This is deceit of the highest order. So being that he's 18, he has to know
that
biology
kid's a baby.
Itself is extremely complicated. Physics is incredibly complicated.
I mean, when you think about it, Darth, because they're trying to defend atheism so bad, they will even talk about nonsense and literally put themselves in delusional positions.
They don't even want to acknowledge the appearance
of
design.
They will
That's
literally
how desperate they are.
They will argue for delusion just to defend atheism. And I'm not going to engage in that nonsense, bro. I'm done. I'm not. No. Just the other day, I was using that same argument. And I said, does the universe appear to be designed? We're not even talking about God yet. Does it appear to be designed? He said, no. I'm like, okay, you're done. Not even going to talk to you.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
So before Darwin,
we're done.
People accepted the design rationale. And the more we study, we see more complex form and function.
Right.
So the point is, these skulls full of mush, right? They're saying that all of these atheist academics with PhDs, must be really stupid to acknowledge. Now remember, these are atheist academics, not theists, atheists. Now, when we see complex form and function, and whenever we know what its origin is, right, it's always intelligence or agency, okay? That when we know of its source. Same thing with specified complexity or information. We know that when we come across specified complexity or information, as opposed to Shannon information, which is a different thing in science, whenever we know what its origin is, it's always agency. So for them to deny, you see, this is how craven they are. So the world appears to be designed. Even the biological realm. If we can use the biological realm as a sample representation of the world, when we look at biology, it is mind-bogglingly complex. In fact, it's so complex, we haven't even figured out DNA yet. We only have a partial understanding of it.
That's right.
So what we have is an array. Okay, so complexity, specified complexity, is an arrangement of complexity that yields either high degree of functionality or meaningfulness. Okay, so we can see specified complexity in atomic and molecular functioning, and we can see that in information, like what's in books. They can both be characterized by specified complexity. And the difference between mere complexity and specification is the specificity or specified complexity yields either complex functioning or it's highly meaningful rather than no meaning at all. So for example, if I show you a page of what appears to be random letters, you just think that's just a bunch of gibberish. It doesn't seem at first glance to represent specified complexity. But if I told you that this was information that has been in the form of a code, then you go, oh, you're just not recognizing the specified complexity. So for example, if I showed you a string of, let's say, 1 billion ones and zeros, it might just seem like there's these random ones and zeros. But if you understand the sequencing, then you understand that the ones and zeros represent alphanumeric characters, and then you have specified complexity. So in other words, here's another example. Have you ever noticed on large jets, at the tips of the wings, they have these vertical risers now?
Yeah.
Okay, that didn't used to be a few years ago. They got this idea from studying the form of birds, where some birds have these feathers that rise up on the ends of their wings, and it provides for stability. Now all these large jets have these risers at the end. They're copying the form and the function that they find in the natural world. Guess what? Putting it on the plane is a design.
I learned something today called nomological possibility. Tufus, ask Darth.
I brought him up here again.
Ask Darth about.
If we study the structure of a cells,
Darth, I want to talk to Adrian. I had a discussion with Adrian.
I'm talking to you. Good.
You called me ignorant for no reason.
I'm about to kick you out of here.
You're about to be unable to talk like a man. I'm 18 and I'm more intelligent than you. And I can honestly engage. You are
engage. Blocked. You're blocked.
Yeah.
Bye.
I just want an honest debate.
Bye. You're blocked. You see, I gave him a second chance, and he just wanted to be belligerent, like the arrogant little punk-ass teenager that he is. He is ignorant. If he says that the world doesn't have the appearance of design, then you're ignorant. It overwhelmingly and uncontroversially has the appearance of design. That's why Darwin tried to come up with the theory to explain the form and function of the animal kingdom. He tried to come up with a mechanism that produced this complex form and function, which we call design. So he's upset because I called him ignorant. Well, he wants to say that all of these PhD atheists who have written in their own books and their own scholarly papers, when they refer to parts or the whole of the world, that it appears to be designed. All of these dozens and dozens and dozens of atheist academics, they're all wrong on that point. Well, I guess they're the ignorant ones, right, then. Welcome, Trevor. What do you want to talk about?
Hello. I've been on your show before, and I'm not entirely happy about proving the disapproval of your argument. So does that make sense? Well, probably not. So
well, then my argument stands because and you not giving a defeater is actually support for my position, because I say that the world appears to be designed with the impossibility of the contrary.
It's not. No. My claim is you prove, and then it's up to you to.
Okay, all right. Well, you just made them for your first mistake. You're confusing proof with persuasion. Hey, sir, listen carefully. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm not going to bicker with you like a teenager. Okay, obviously you're not a teenager, right? So you better up your adult game, or I'm going to kick you. All right? Now, listen carefully. Listen carefully. I've given the proof. If you don't accept it, that's a functional denial, so you have to give me a formal rebuttal. Okay? Now, if you ignore what I just said to you, I'm kicking you.
Sir.
If you ignore what I just said to you, I'm kicking you.
Okay, then kick me, because you're a coward.
Goodbye.
Bitch. Yeah.
See, did I not warn him? If you ignore what I just said to you, you see, this is their whole shtick. Okay, just be argumentative like a teenager, right? My whole point is this: I gave a powerful, positive, propositional defense that the world appears to be designed because it is, with the impossibility of the contrary, and he's conceding he can't offer a defeater. So guess what? I've given a reductio ad absurdum, that the denial of the proposition leads to absurdity. So you got nothing. Your denial isn't based upon any rational explication, which is a part of my argument. It's called a reductio ad absurdum. All right, I'll be back. I got to do something.
All right, Darth. All right. Where is he still here? Let me see. Oh, he's gone. He's gone. All right. I gotta get off of here in a bit. Who's commenting now? It's okay. You will meet him. What is evident is it is appointed for every man to live, and then unalive, then comes the judgment. Yeah. One day they will meet God. They will. I'm so tired. Damn. Debating really messes with your brain. Oh, damn. I gotta go do some reading. There is this book that I have to reread today. I think I can finish 230 pages in one day. I did it before. I think I can do it again. Yeah. Wow, this guy says, God of the Gapes says there is no evidence for anything after that. Oh, wow. You know, these people just make some claims, man. They're just speaking out of their ass. It's amazing. It's amazing. It is amazing. And if I were to ask him, does he know that with absolute certainty that there is nothing after you die? He would say no. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. You know why he doesn't know, everybody on YouTube? Because he's using an epistemic methodology that does not provide him with absolute certainty. Also, there is no source from any scientific paper, literature, or peer review that he can go to quote and say, there is nothing that happens after you die. because science does not study the supernatural; it studies the natural. So there is that his epistemic standard is limited to even make any coherent claims about anything outside of the scope of science. But he'll make claims anyway because these people, man, they're so, oh boy. I can see why Darth Dawkins can't stand you people. I can tell. I can see it. He's saying cite one source that's evidence. Oh my goodness. The misunderstanding of the position is amazing. It's amazing. I'm going to invite you up, God of the Grapes, and see if you are a rational human being. Oh, I can't invite him up because he doesn't have enough followers. Only has 40 followers. You are so unpopular. I can see why people don't follow you. It's something. I don't want to hear. I don't want to see any of your comments anymore, man. You're muted. You're done. I don't want to see any more of your comments. You can swipe up and leave if you want. It matters nothing to me. You people are so stupid and so moronic. It's amazing. And I'm not making an umbrella claim that all atheists are like that, but the ones I've spoken to, the vast majority of you, are punk asses. You're stupid. You're crazy. You're so dumb. It's amazing. It's amazing. Anyways, I know the Lord calls us to be patient, but it's very difficult with you people. Very difficult. Very, very difficult. All right, I'm going to jump off of here. I'm done for the day. I have a time when I come on TikTok and when I don't, and I'm done for the day. Yeah, atheists are missing a logical part of the brain. What? Darth Blockins? Who the hell is that? Thank you, Quinn. Is that Darth Dawkins or is it a parody? Darth Blockins. Oh, it has to be a parody because Darth likes to block people. Let me see if this is Darth. Or he's just using Darth's picture. Hey, is this Darth? You can't tell. Blocked. Okay. This is not Darth Dawkins. It's somebody using his DP. Darth Blockins. Yeah, I agree with him. I'll go as far as muting people. I only block people when they talk about my family because that's just a line nobody should ever cross. But Darth has justification for blocking people who are unreasonable. He does. Yeah, I can see it's not Darth, but I thought it was. Anyways, guys, God bless all of you, even the ones who don't believe in God. God bless you. And I'll see you guys tomorrow if I decide to go on TikTok because I'm done for the day. I'm going to go read a book and then spend some time with my family. God bless you all. Have a good one. All right, let me see. Oh, I got 6 followers. That's not bad. That isn't bad. That's not bad at all. So now I think I have, let's see. I think I have, oh, wow, so itchy. I think I'm above 950 now. I'm at 964. Hopefully when I get to 1,000, I can start streaming on my laptop. That's going to be way better. I can literally stream, right? And everything you see here in this screen right here on YouTube, it's going to be my TikTok live itself. So I can put things on the screen to show people and stuff. And it's It's going to be a good thing. Anyways, guys, have a good day. Everybody on YouTube, God bless you. This was a blast.